presiding over a ceremony that is very sacred to those of us who served, and that is a dignified return of remains from the war zone. And that process happens beginning in the war zone through Dover to the hometown of our fallen heroes. I participated in many of those ceremonies myself, to include carrying friends of mine off the plane. One of those is on this bracelet. He was cut in half by an Iranian EFP. This regime that we are fighting does not care about our partisan politics. They don't care who you voted for, who you pray to, or where you live. They want to kill all of us. And they don't just say it.
Want to get it off your chest? You're in the right place. They accuse this show of being run by boobs. Well, let me tell you about us boobs. We're real and we're spectacular. Want politics and fun sprinkled with a lot of laughs? Heard in every state in the Union and 1,000 cities around the world. We just finished 17 years of broadcast excellence. Now in our 18th year, the Dave Weinbaum Show is streaming live all over the world.
Do it. And they've been doing it for 47 years. This is a war of choice. The Democrats are correct. It's a war of choice that was begun by a radical, lunatic band of terrorists that took over a beautiful nation 47 years ago. Took it over with brutality, force, and savagery. And the second they took it over, they didn't free their people. They didn't unleash the largest oil reserves in the world to build schools and bridges. They took it over to murder their own people and to spread their disgusting ideology across the world, and that is exactly what they have been doing. They don't just say it and talk about it. You don't have to believe what they say. You can simply watch what they've done. They have attacked families, women, children, innocent people. They don't just attack them and kill them. They rape them. They skin them alive on camera.
All right. Good morning. This is Don Mayhew, chief substitute boob for the head boob. And this morning came in relief. And so we're got several things lined up for the show today. And we're going to get right into them. But some of the stuff that's been coming out here recently is the change in the rhetoric over the last several years, of course, coming from Islam. And we've frequently referred to that as radical Islam. And we've noticed that over the last few years, there's been a pretty huge uptick in how radical that has become. And not the least of which is what we're seeing in what we would traditionally call Muslim countries that were accepting of other religions. And there's been a concerted effort over the last 10 years of de-Christianizing. Well, they were always trying to get rid of the Jews from their country, of course, but also the de-Christianizing of what were predominant Muslim countries. And we've always been told that that's a tolerant religion, right? Well, apparently for at least some of the folks who practice that religion, they haven't read that particular verse, apparently. So we've got a little bit of stuff going that direction this morning. And, we also want to get a little bit into AI and what's coming out of that. And we've mentioned that before on the show, and we'll probably get a little bit of that talk intermixed in with the rest of the show. Some of our guests this morning, I know, have some pretty strong opinions on even that subject too. So, and it may look like we're going in two different directions today, but in reality, it's kind of all dovetails together, and we'll try to put it all together toward the end of the show. So, how are you this morning?
I think you could say that it's kind of the sudden. Maybe it's not sudden. I think it's been something that's been in the works for probably decades now. And we're going to have more clips talking about this later, but kind of accepting radical Islam in the United States and also the idea of AI. These are new things that, well, AI could be potentially a good thing. I think there are also some implications of it that have me a little bit concerned about some of his capability for the negative. Right. When it comes to radical Islam, I don't think there's really any good thing about it, just in my opinion. But it's kind of interesting how people have begun to embrace these ideas. And some people that I know that are not against radical Islam coming in are also the same ones that have absolutely no concern about AI whatsoever, which kind of really shocks me.
Right.
I would look at that and say, well, how could you not look at the implications of what could be to the negative? There are some positives that could be, no doubt. Mm-hmm. But what happens if it gets in the wrong hands? And that's the biggest concern. And some of the guests that we have come on today, JJ Bradshaw will be coming on shortly. He's our Second Amendment expert, and he talks about everything that has him concerned with the state of our times right now. Chris Adamo always comes on and always has a lot to say about the current issues of the day as well. Joel Dalton will be on later. We do talk politics with him. He also likes to focus on a lot of the local issues we have, including a lot of the stuff with abortion and some of the recent state laws that we saw being accepted in some of the dim states up until now, passing that they can kill a child up to birth. Mm-hmm. That's now law in some states. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to be talking about that with Joe Dalton. He's going to be in studio later on. And then Richard Jeffrey, who is a guy who is an author, and he usually talks a lot about time travel and some different things. He's actually wanting to get into the AI discussion with you today.
Yeah.
Because he has some concerns as well. It's going to be good. Right. And we actually have our first guest, JJ Bradshaw, joining us. And
well, before we get to JJ, that it's instructive to point out that, remember what Lenin said. He said, we won't turn America into a communist country overnight, but if we feed her spoonfuls of socialism, mm-hmm. one day she'll wake up a communist country. Mm-hmm. And so the radical Islam element has adopted that Marxist Leninist principle, and so that's kind of what we're really seeing. We're seeing this slow migration of this philosophy coming into our culture.
Well, one thing I'll say before we go to JJ is I never thought there'd be a day that I would agree so much with Bill Mayer and not agree with Tucker Carlson, but that's the day that we're in, and it just
isn't that weird. Right?
It's so weird.
Yeah,
but that's the time that we're in.
Yeah. Well, look who's with us.
Well, good morning.
How are you, JJ? Long time no see.
Well, it's been a few weeks.
Yeah, it's been a couple.
There's been an awful lot going on this week.
Yeah.
Dave and I often talk with each other about we're drowning in this stuff. There's so much flying past us. Right. Since you opened the monologue with AI, I'm prepared to talk a little bit about that. Dave does an awful lot of research for his show, many hours actually, to do a 3-hour segment. I do a couple 3 hours for a 20-minute segment because I need to make sure it's right. Need to make sure it's accurate. Mm-hmm. And if it's opinion, I'll tell you it's opinion.
Unlike some of the news shows that we experience where they spit it out of their mouth and don't worry about it. They check it later, right? So
yeah, or they'll claim opinion as fact. Well, right. One of the things that Dave and I both run into is there is so much fake that is generated by artificial means. Now, there's a human back there that's pulling the strings.
Right.
But so many news stories, and I mean they have flourished of late, are fake, and they appear to be real. We always go to sources that are trusted, and over the last year or so, Dave and I require 2 sources to be in agreement before we'll mention something.
Just like the good old days of good journalism, right?
Back in the day, yeah.
Yep.
And we've had to do that because there's so much fake stuff that looks real. It looks like it might be plausible or feasible. And by golly, you do a little bit of research and you find it's absolutely spun up to where it doesn't look like the facts that were the basis of it to begin with. So
Yeah.
AI is being used to mislead. And what a shame, because this could be a force for good. The trouble is, evil men will always find a way to do evil.
No, that's true. You know, you'd brought up some interesting points there. So it all depends on the premise of the algorithm, and I'm probably using the wrong word, and all of the algorithm people out there are probably going to, comment on my misuse of it, but in a way to help me understand. So if you can write an algorithm that searches for data under certain conditions. You set these rules in any algorithm. Well, if the first rule, let's just use an example, is that global warming is a fact. Okay, so then
no, that's not a rule. That's a premise.
Yeah, certainly. But that if it becomes the rule in the algorithm, and so then the machine is going to strive to relate everything to that initial premise, just like you pointed out. And so therein lies the difficulty, but therein also is the devil in the details, right? We've got so some human being wrote that premise, and they have a preconceived notion about global warming, correct? So therefore,
you're describing what happens in every editorial room of the major networks. They start with a premise.
Precisely. And what's the old joke about when you're when you get your PhD, you come up with a hypothesis, and then you test it and experiment and then either prove or disprove it. Well, the way it's done now is that you come up with the conclusion, and then you manipulate the data in order to to support your conclusion, right?
That happens at all levels, and that's not necessarily just the news. That happens in our government up and down.
Oh, 100%. I can testify to that one live and in person. So, but yes, so the algorithm is certainly limited by the human input. And so then it's going to drive the answers, just that, that's the old butterfly flapping its wings thing, right? And then that affects everything downstream. Well, and so I've experienced this with AI, and it's exactly what you're talking about. AI will lie to you, and it's not really intentionally lying. It's doing its thing based on that original premise of whoever wrote that algorithm.
Yeah. How about that basic premise be always tell the truth? Now it's up to AI to figure out what the truth is.
Well, see, but that takes free moral agency in order to be able to identify the truth, right?
Yeah, there's a judgment call there.
It's a judgment, right?
So I wasn't prepared to talk about AI, but Dave and I run into it all the time, in that we both of us want to be truthful and honest in this show, and if it's opinion, we'll tell you it's opinion.
Right.
And that's becoming more difficult to do every day because of the flood of artificially induced stuff, that some of it's blatantly untrue. Some of it's just spun up pretty good. But in any case, you really got to dig for the truth anymore.
One of my favorite networks is Newsmax, or it has been.
I like Newsmax, yeah.
I do too. I mean, for some of the folks that are on there, but it has become all 100% opinion. There's no real news in Newsmax. And so what was it I read the other day? They had I'll look this up just to make sure, but they have a strategic partnership now with one of the big AI generators. And so, like I said, at some point in the show, I'll pull that out. But that caused me concern. That news report that came out, that caused me a lot of concern. Understanding completely that, this is a tool that everybody's using now, and you got to keep up with the Joneses, basically.
Sure.
But for that announcement from a news source, that I'd trusted, and an opinion source that I'd trusted for years, and then it creates a strategic partnership with, what I see will be the eventual downfall of the world. But that sounds a bit harsh. But my point in all of that is that it was, you had pointed out, I think in a previous show, you and I definitely, we had talked about it privately at meetings and such, about the real power of AI is doing Winston Smith's job from 1984, right?
Yeah.
Where you turn people who are enemies of the state into non-persons by manipulating the sources, right? You remove their name from everything, all books, all articles, etc., and
They
they
become
become
a
a
non-entity.
non-person. Yeah. And so the same is true, of course, for any written word. And you and I had used the Bible as an example. With this complete reliance on these digital sources, where back in the old days, you and I grew up with books, and we had to open the books and read the index to find out whatever it was we were looking for. But that book existed and existed forever until the book got destroyed, which was Fahrenheit 451, right? To give you a little bit of where my head goes sometimes. But the reality is every single one of those words that comes through your little digital device, your cell phone, whatever, can be manipulated by AI, and that becomes the truth.
And traditionally, that was manipulated by a human being, and they would reprint a book with all the lies in it. And now it can be done digitally and immediately.
In real time. Yeah.
Yeah. So the alteration, which once took years, can be done in milliseconds now. And that's kind of a scary prospect. I still read books. I like the feel of a book in my hand. And will probably continue to read books until I go blind and can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Let me change subject on you.
Go ahead.
Of course, we usually talk about national news on this program.
Certainly.
And, if you recall, Newt Gingrich had what was called the contract with America way back when. And for those of Dave's listeners who are young enough to not remember that, this was a contract between conservative Republicans in the Congress and the man on the street, that Congress would do certain things and behave in certain fashions. And it was actually quite popular in its time before the Democrats took over the House again and smashed it. But the contract with America had some very good things in it. And I read an article the other day that needs to come back. That article was talking about the prospects of Republicans in the midterms. And we'll talk about that in some depth here directly. But, if you look at the at the Democrat platform at the moment, it's been taken over by the so-called Democrat socialists, the Marxists in this world, the Trotskyists, all communists. And one of the things the Republicans are going to have to do for the midterms is advertise the good things that they have done and advertise the good things that they intend to do, very much like Newt Gingrich's contract with America. You need to get in front of the man who's going to go in the voting booth and say, this is what we're going to do for you. This is what we have done for you. Instead of going the negative route and saying, these are all the terrible things that the Democrats have done and will do. Try to put a positive spin on it. Whether our rhino Republicans will actually do that or not is some.
Well, I'm glad you pointed out that last thing, because if you'll recall, and I had to look it up so I'd have a complete list of it. But in the contract for America, you'll remember that there was a lot of talk about the balanced budget amendment.
Indeed.
and that we were going to try to do something with that. And a lot of that came out of the out of control spending that was going on with the United States Congress. Keep in mind that it was we had Bill Clinton in that mix.
40 trillion in debt, but okay.
Yeah. And line item veto, which we never got. Welfare reform we did get, because Newt held held Bill Clinton hostage on that one.
did.
The only way to get him to go along with that, the tax cuts.
Well, he held, let me interrupt for a moment.
Yeah.
He held Clinton hostage, but he held the balance of the House of Representatives hostage as well.
No, absolutely, and that was certainly the rhinos that you're referring to were hard pressed to vote against anything like tax cuts or welfare reform, which they normally would do, and I'll get to the reasons why some of this didn't get done here in a minute. But crime reduction measures absolutely did that. Term limits for Congress obviously did not happen. Social Security reform, which is absolutely needs to be done, did not happen. Reduced government regulations. There was some, but a lot of it just came right back whenever the Democrats took over. Tort reform, which we will never get done, but I'll get into that one too in a minute. National defense strengthening. Had it not been for Reagan, we would have already been a satellite of the USSR. And I don't think there's much argument about that one. But all the things that were on there, the things that we didn't get out of there, you will notice they share things in common. The lobbyists don't like them.
And so much of this has come back to haunt us in the current era.
Yeah. The lobbyists don't like tort reform. The lobbyist doesn't like Social Security reform. Term limits for Congress. Obviously, after they've invested so much money into somebody, they sure don't want them going away. A line item veto. Oh, but heck no, we aren't going to do no line item veto. That is out of the question. The one thing that we did get in there, the welfare reform, was so. I mean, it was a step in the right direction, but it was so minor in its effect that the lobbyists really didn't care about it. And so with some of the things, if I remember correctly, was a effective means testing. Back then it was basically you show up once a month at the welfare office, and as long as you were wearing a dirty T-shirt, you got signed up for whatever it was you wanted to be signed up for.
Hasn't that come home to roost, though?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And so, unfortunately, the effects of the New Deal, maybe not the New Deal itself, but the effects of the New Deal has created a dependent society, dependent on the government. And where back in the old days, charity was mostly done by our churches.
You remember 1962, Lyndon Baines Johnson, Great Society?
Oh, yeah, Great Society.
You remember he shoved that thing through. Of course, he had a Democrat Congress behind him. And if you look, that's where our current welfare state has come from. The results of that were probably not predictable, but if you take a look at Black families, there's no husbands in them anymore. Right. It made it beneficial to remain single and have illicit children. The government pays you for that. That's one of the awful social things that occurred as a result of that Great Society. Well, I would blame him for the rest of my life for the dismal things that have occurred as a result of that. You can thank a Democrat president and a Democrat Congress for that.
Yeah, and if frequently we say that, but the reality is that the inner city shows up with those kind of statistics simply because there's more people there. But I'll grant you, per capita in my county alone, we have way more than what you would find in the inner city of this exact example you're talking about. Yeah. Folks who are dependent on the system, fatherless children, enormous numbers of kids in rural areas that are in the foster care system, drugs, and a lot of that all revolves around drugs. Well, people take drugs probably for a lot of reasons, but what I have found out is a hungry man will make a different decision with the dollars in his pocket when it comes to choosing between food and drugs. And unfortunately, what we've done is we've created a system by which we can enable them to stay on drugs, and rather than trying to help them out of the situation that they're in.
That's just a manifestation of a much larger problem, and that is we will pay you more than you could make working to stay home. so an able-bodied citizen can sit home, sip on the whiskey, smoke the pot, get tattoos, and not have to work. Of course, you and I are footing the bill for that, but it's even worse than that. We have raised a generation that thinks it's not important to work, that there's no satisfaction in working, that I can live in mom's basement until she falls over dead and I inherit the house.
Right.
We've lost that bit of responsibility and morality. And if you look at that, those are Christian values that have gone out the window,
Yeah.
or at least been downplayed. And I thank the Democrat socialists for that and the Marxists for that. They politicsed quietly for many, many years to get that done. Karl Marx was right in that regard.
Yeah, and so they put into action what I used to blame this on Cicero, but it wasn't Cicero; it was Juvenal. He was a poet in Rome, or in the early first century, and he was talking about how Rome controlled the populace, and he said, "Bread and circus." You give them bread and circus, they will do anything that you want.
That was absolutely right.
And that's what we've got. I mean, that's what the entire welfare system is just bread and circus. They make sure that, we get to watch football Sunday afternoon and keep our bellies fed. And, people ain't talking about revolution whenever they're fat, dumb, and happy. And
the circus, all you have to do is look at our national politics, and you've got a circus right there. And if you look, now I blame the Democrats for this, but the Republicans are guilty as well.
Oh, 100%.
They sow chaos. The Democrat Party lives on chaos.
Yeah.
And sadly, us conservatives haven't managed to put that fire out.
Well, 40 trillion in debt pretty much points out that it ain't just one party doing it, right?
No,
40 trillion in debt. The problem becomes at that national level when there's that much money in that huge river of money. All you got to do is dip your fingers in it a little bit, and you're taken care of for life.
And here comes
all
the
you
fraud.
need to do, and all you need to do is just ignore it, right? And
Mhm.
and I wouldn't say that those are the exact words used, but that is the impression when you get to Washington, D.C. It's like, okay, here's two paths you can go down. One of them is, it's going to be pretty easy. We'll tell you what you can think, do, and say every day, but we'll make sure you're taken care of. Well, the same is true in every state capital that there is, at least the ones I'm familiar with, but certainly ours. The exact same philosophy is at work and at play. And, unfortunately, believe it or not, I find it hard that I even say this, but term limits plays into that quite a bit.
Don't I wish? You'll never get a legislature to vote term limits in because it's self-defeating.
Well, no, I'm talking. The people voted it in here, but I don't think they realize the total effect of that. So what's happened in Jefferson City is that term limits has resulted in the bureaucrats and the lobbyists owning the place, and I don't think there's any doubt of that.
Players change, but the ill effects remain.
Yeah, the ill effects remain. And you had earlier pointed out, that maybe you were talking about a different thing, but it's true everywhere. Any good thing can be put to a bad use. Mm-hmm. And so the bad guys will always figure out a way to use the good thing toward bad ends.
Of course.
But I think it's incumbent on us, because I've said this many a time, that, socialism is easy. All you got to do is sit around and draw your check. It's a democratic republic like what we've got. That's hard work. Mm-hmm. And it's not hard work for the politicians. It's who it really needs to be hard work for is the constituency, the voters. And it takes a lot of work to be able to make a decision. And it's just so easy just to watch a YouTube video or a Facebook post to have somebody else make up your mind for you.
Indeed. We elect representatives like you to stand up for us and try to do what's right. Not always successful at that. This is a representative republic. You're not going to be successful at all these things, but you fight the good fight, and you at least bring transparency. You discuss these things in the open. And if you look at our opponents, the Democrats, the Marxists, they would much prefer things be done in a locked, smoky room without any transparency and without the public knowing what goes on. And someone said, if you like sausage, you really don't want to watch sausage being made. And in a representative republic, making the sausage is pretty dirty business.
Right.
But in the end, if you're doing it right, you come up with the proper answers. I'm so ashamed.
It assumes, though, JJ, that everyone has good intentions to start with, and so what you hope is that it's like I say about my friends on the other side of the aisle. 9 times out of 10, we all know where point A is, and we all know where we want to get to at point B. What we're really disagreeing about is the path to get there.
How we get there.
That's right. Now, that's an honest disagreement. Well, where we run into a problem is that more and more of our politicians do not care about point B. It's point B is meaningless to them. It was like a good friend of mine, former legislator by the name of Dean Dorman, very astute, very learned, second-year freshman up in Jefferson City, and I was whining and grousing about how we never got anything done in the Capitol. And he goes, well, Don, he said, you just don't understand. He said, you can't fundraise on problems you fixed. And if I had to point to one guiding philosophy up in Jefferson City, but not just Jefferson City, but federal government's the same way, and probably many of the states, is that is the mindset. I mean, if I solve this problem, I got to come up with a whole nother problem to solve in order to get funds from somebody else.
And
right?
We have perpetual problems.
Exactly. And so
everybody makes noise about solving them, but surprise, they never get solved.
Oh, yeah. Well,
take a look at our debt crisis. Take a look at the Social Security insolvency. We've been talking about these things for decades.
Right.
And is anything being done about it? No, nothing substantial.
No, but there's a lot of cottage industries that have been built around, the Social Security game. And, AARP comes to mind. They're an organization theoretically put in place to make sure that everybody gets their Social Security, but the system they're supporting will do the exact opposite of that. Indeed. At some point, the system collapses under its own weight, and we're fast approaching that. A part of this unfunded debt that we've got is because they were raiding the Social Security quote unquote lockbox.
They absolutely did. Our Congress raided that and has raided it ever since, and a pox on those that voted to do that. That system would have made most of us millionaires in our retirement had it been left alone. And of course, people meddled with it and they raided it. And look at the disgusting garbage that they spent that money on. If that was done for some good, maybe I'd consider it. Put that money in our military, put that money in some programs that actually accomplish something. But if you look, that Social Security fund that was raided has been given away to the Democrats' buddies. It has accomplished little other than fraud and disgusting.
Well, certainly, but I could probably point to a few Republicans also who benefited greatly
no question. That dirt lies on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, and you need to go no farther than the state of Missouri. We had $6.5 billion in reserve only 4 years ago, and now we're scraping for pennies just to fund the foundation formula. And why is that? Because we had a lot of politicians up in Jefferson City that wanted to play Santa Claus.
Those are fellows that are bought and paid for.
Yeah.
And they were bought cheap.
Oh, well, most certainly cheap, especially when you saw the result of what it was that they were, what the reason why they did what they did. I mean, if there was a good aspect of our current term limit thing, that it limited their thieving from the Treasury to only 8 years, right?
Yeah.
And
actually, term limits to be any good effect has to be nationwide. It has to be uniform. And right now it's done piecemeal. Missouri's managed to get some of that done, for better or for worse. But unless that applies across the board to every state and every senator and every congressman, it's not going to be effective. It's going to be a patchwork of ineffective.
Well, you know what would work to where you wouldn't have to do term limits at all? And it's really simple. I'd actually filed this bill knowing for sure that it wasn't going to go anywhere. But basically, it was an HJR to encourage the federal government to do a couple of things. One of them was to abolish the 14th Amendment, return all taxing authority to the states where it was originally meant to be. Go read the Constitution. And then the states would pay a pro rata share toward the federal budget.
Federal government, yes.
But my extra little line in there was that in any year that Congress did not pass a balanced budget, then the states, the various states, weren't obligated to pay their pro rata share.
Yes.
Well, you know what would happen instantaneously if that passed?
Is that went up in flames, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. But your federal government would then become responsive to the people for a change, not to the lobbyists. And you say, well, all you're going to do is move that problem down to the states. But you know what? I can drive to Jeff City in an hour.
There is much more accountability in the states than there is at the federal level. So at least you have gained some modicum of control over the situation.
That's right. You're a lot closer to the fire. Like I said, when I was serving on the school board, that's as close to the fire as you can possibly get. So you better watch yourself. You better do what's right by the people. So,
well, your buddies are watching you, and that's not so much at the federal level. You look at those.
Well, if you live in my neighborhood, me even as a state representative, pretty much all my constituents know right where I live, and
that's right.
A few of them have showed up on Sunday afternoon and said, "I want you to tell Nancy Pelosi or whatever." Right? Well,
that's the reason that local government and state government is fairly responsive. I don't know if you've heard me say this before, but Dave's heard me say this 100 times. At the local level, your children go to school with your representatives' children. You go to the same church.
Yeah.
You get to the county level, it's a little more removed. You get to the state level, it's a little more removed, but there is some accountability. You can get a hold of these folks and you can make your thoughts known. By the time you get to the federal level, you're talking to some staffer and he's checking a box on a spreadsheet. Okay, this guy doesn't like taxes. So are you actually connecting with your elected representative? Never. No. He never hears your voice.
And in their defense, they have 800,000 constituents on the average, and so it would be very difficult. You remember the original arrangement in the Constitution was each U.S. representative would represent 35,000 people, which is what a state representative in Missouri represents.
Yeah.
So imagine then how big the Capitol would be if that was left the way it was. So I can understand the need to expand that a little bit. But by the time you get to 800,000 people, I would submit to you by the time you get to 100,000 people, you pretty much lost any contact with your constituency.
Your voice is gone.
Yeah,
that is just a fact of life. And you mentioned people doing good things and bad things. The man on the street would probably like his government to do good things. Now, he may differ on what those good things constitute, what makes them good things. But I think his heart's in the right place. But then you have some evil. You have the evil folks that are interested only in power, and they don't really give a damn what the man on the street thinks. And sadly, they're making decisions. Now, we've got lobbyists that are pouring money into their coffers that make them bought and paid for. And as a voter, my voice is never heard in that regard.
Well, JJ, the problem really boils down to, unfortunately, people vote for the person who tells them what they want to hear,
of course,
not what they need to hear. And if you tell them what they need to hear, they don't like that, and they're going to reward you by voting for someone else.
Yes.
And so the guy who tells them what they want to hear is also the guy who doesn't care about what he tells you, because you know what? He'll just change it to something that meets the current whatever poll is
Oh,
out
yes.
here,
It's
right?
worse than that because his monetary sack is already full. He doesn't feel a monetary need to take care of the business of the folks that he represents.
Right.
Well, JJ, our next guest has arrived. So, as always, thank you so much for being the leadoff speaker for us and setting the tone. We always appreciate your insight, and of course, looking forward to having you on again next week.
It has been my pleasure, gentlemen. Don, thank you so much for our conversation this morning.
Yeah. Now, I'll see you on the street somewhere.
Oh, possibly. Good day.
Let's hear it for JJ Bradshaw.
Always stimulating conversation with JJ.
Always with JJ, and also with this fellow, Chris Adamo, who is the author of this book, Rules for Defeating Radicals, which we're in a time right now where this book, we need this kind of strategy. So highly recommend that you pick up a copy. We're going to tell you how to do that here in a little while. But Chris, welcome to the show with Missouri State Rep Don Mayhew. How you doing this morning?
Good morning. How are you gentlemen doing?
All right. And I noticed that there's a common haircut theme we've got going on. Everybody has the same haircut. So how are you today, Chris?
Well, I'm personally doing great. My mood is kind of grim, to be honest with you.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, excuse me. Okay, we moved where we're currently at here in Missouri. We moved here in 2018. 32 years prior to that, we lived in Wyoming.
Yeah.
And Wyoming, with its low population, if you get involved in politics, even at the grassroots level, you end up with a pretty big reach if you stay in it for long. And we did just that. And so I'm still, even though I haven't lived there for 8 years now, I'm still pretty involved in the grassroots discourse and things in Wyoming politics.
Good. Excellent.
And frankly, the Wyoming primary happened on Tuesday, and with a couple of notable exceptions, it was a disaster. And if it's a harbinger of things to come for the rest of the country, we are in a really bad way. And I hate to sound so gloom and doom.
Yeah,
we did get a good candidate for the United States Senate through the primary, Harriet Hageman. She's been in Congress. She replaced Liz Cheney. It was you might say a hostile takeover because Cheney had gone full Nancy Pelosi, and so.
Right. Which I wanted to remind you that Liz Cheney came from Wyoming.
Yes, Liz Cheney was, but I tell you what, she was just a textbook example of what was, and sadly we find out on Tuesday still is very wrong with how politics run in Wyoming. Too much of the time. Anyway, so we got.
So Chris, just real quick, I'm curious. With all your efforts that are being done, we know Wyoming is a highly conservative state, has been historically for years. What do you think went wrong then?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, there's the money aspect of it. And, when you're outspent by your political opponent 10, 20 to 1, it's difficult.
And where'd that money come from, Chris?
A lot of that money came from out of state. You have some wealthy
lobbyists,
people,
right?
Lobbyists, leftist political organizations that come up with names that sound for the people and this kind of stuff. And there's some big money in Wyoming. There's some big oil families in Wyoming that have always manipulated Wyoming politics around their interests. We got a couple of things going on right now that and I was listening to the gentleman you just had on, and I was trying to do some show prep at the same time, but he made some excellent points. But when you get people in those positions and they can threaten you with the dollar,
right? There's
a lot of citizens, common citizens that I don't like that politics stuff. What's the Chiefs doing, or back there it's what's the Broncos doing,
right?
And I don't have time for that, and so I'll tune into the TV, for 15 minutes in the evening while I'm eating dinner and hear what they have to say. And you're going to get a leftist perspective on things from fake news. And there's so much of this that goes on, and we don't worry about it. And by the way, it's just the primary. It's not the general election. I'll show up during the general and vote, but I don't really have time during the primary. And these things all combined, you had, low voter turnout, 30, 35%. You had a very, very dedicated, very highly paid leftist activism going on. And you have frankly, the mindless indoctrination of the younger generation in the so-called school system. And a combination of these things, Wyoming had been really, really working towards a great turning point against the rhino establishment. And I'd call this year the revenge of the rhinos, because all these things I've described to you combined together. And the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, which was doing just an excellent job, they dominated the legislature. They kept their promises: lower taxes, reduce regulations, bring schools back to accountability to what the parents want. They did all of this stuff. It all got vilified. They had a single little incident that was actually nothing illegal happening, but they were able to make it look bad. And this had to do with a lady handing out campaign checks, perfectly legal, perfectly, everything was above board, but she did it after the legislature had closed. She went down to the legislative floor and did it out on the legislative floor. They called it bribes. It became Checkgate, and 24/7, that's all you hear on the news. It was a pack of lies, and yet the average citizen who just tunes in for the evening news and ignores things, there was this huge scandal that the Wyoming Freedom Caucus was involved in. They must be a bunch of criminals. And frankly, it was a bloodbath on Tuesday. They went from being a majority in the House down to just a handful, replaced by not just by other conservatives, but replaced by rhinos. The big thing in Wyoming is with an 80% Republican voter registration, if you're going to be a liberal in Wyoming, it's much more effective to do so as a Republican voting like a Democrat than to call yourself a Democrat.
Oh, wow. Never heard of such a thing. Is that's really a thing in places? I can't hardly believe that.
No more, and by the way, I appreciate JP showing my book. I've got a whole chapter on rhinos. And
but Chris, what started out, and I'll go back to the Tea Party folks. The Tea Party folks was a nice cross section of what I would call folks who were concerned about politics, right, or the direction of politics, and so what ended up happening, and if you go back and you try to tick out the chronology of it, I mean, it takes a little bit of inside baseball, but once you start seeing the pattern, what happened is that here in Missouri, at least, and I think in other states it was similar, it was more the libertarian takeover of the Tea Party philosophy. And not that I have a whole lot of disagreement. It's like I tell my libertarian friends up in the Capitol that, we agree on 95% of the stuff, but that 5%'s a deal killer.
Absolutely agree with you. You're 100% right.
And, and so they say, well, what is that? Well, I'm not going to be for legalization of drugs, nothing ever.
Prostitution, right? Everything. Yeah,
exactly. My libertarian friends always use this. It's an exaggeration, but it does help kind of understand the difference. Is that too frequently they think, like the police department ought to be on a pay-as-you-go basis, right? And me as a conservative evangelical Christian, I wear that title proudly. The fact is that we understand the government runs on taxes. What we and all taxpayers should be concerned about is how our government wastes those taxes. We understand it takes the money to run the government, but when you waste our money, then that's what upsets us, and that's where the controls need to come in. My libertarian friends somehow think that we can do all of this without taxes at all, or more appropriately, they're not so much against taxes; they just don't want to be the ones paying them. So,
I would agree with you 100% on that. if you have libertarian friends, you're probably a lot more congenial and amicable than I can be, because I butt heads with them real fast and real hard. I explain to libertarians that what they are is socialist leftists who haven't realized it yet. Because if you look at the libertarian philosophy, and we can take it all the way back to the very first libertarian political stump speech, which was given by a snake in a tree, it all comes down to we don't want consequences for our actions. We just want to be able to do what we want. And if I let you do what you want, you let me do what I want, everything will be okay.
Right.
And again, going all the way back, it has never worked.
I love that one, a snake in a tree. I would only add to that, a snake in a tree giving away apples that he didn't pay for.
Yeah. So, but if you look at the textbook experiment versus control example of libertarianism, you go back to the American Revolution, where it was throwing off the yoke of tyranny, and it was establishing one nation under God.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately on its heels, when people saw all the blessings and benefits of that, you had the French Revolution, where they were going to do it, but they were going to do the libertarian version, because they're going to leave that messy thou shalt not stuff out of it and just freedom for everybody. Do what you want. And what you had was the reign of terror,
right,
followed immediately by, you had the despotism of an emperor. So this is what they got for their libertarian counterfeit for an actual Great Awakening type revolution that we had in America. Problem is, as you said, 95% of it sounds good. Okay, and so they'll come in and they'll hijack these things.
Mm-hmm.
The result is a disaster. When you have a disaster, you have a chaotic society, you have fear, you have chaos, you have squalor. In the wake of that, people look to something. We got to have somebody fix this. That's when the despot arises, because he's sitting there waiting in the wings.
That's right. So yes, you're correct. In fact, the only revolution in history that wasn't the rising up of the peasants was the American Revolution. The American Revolution was the working class, and the business class is what drove that revolution. So huge difference in outcome, right? As you rightly pointed out, the French Revolution was all about chaos and taking what is not rightfully yours away from those who had either earned it or didn't. I mean, we could argue all day long that monarchy caused a lot of that problem over there.
There's always reasons for it, and you're right. There's always things that need to be addressed, and yet when they get addressed by Christians, by people like you describe, our founders, it's a matter of, let's establish justice. Okay, we do that according to moral precepts. When it's done just as a reaction, it's Scripture warns against returning evil for evil. When it's done just as a reaction, you have the problems in Cuba, which were real under Baptista. And what did they get in the wake of that? They get Fidel Castro. By any standard that they could criticize Baptista, the horrors under Castro were 1,000 times worse.
The loss of every republic in history has been related to corruption. It was corruption that brought down the Roman Republic. All the Greek republics were brought down by corruption. And that was the lesson in not Socrates. Who am I trying to think of there? Starts with an H. Was the lesson when if you go back and read the Federalist Papers and who they were referring to, and I apologize for not remembering it right off the top of my head.
Oh, that's okay. That happens to me more and more, by the way.
I know, that's right. It comes with the color of the hair, I think. But but the reality is that it was corruption, and also, at least under Roman society, things were too good. People didn't pay any attention to what was going on, and they lost their republic because they weren't participating, right? And I would extend that to the Roman Senate, who was living too good off of the government dole, and so they went along with a lot of that corruption.
And they had their own versions of CNN at the time, by the way, not quite to that degree, but. Just, I want to go back and so much you said, it was so profoundly true. Now let's look at D-Day 1944.
Yeah,
you had Americans I mean, an enormous number of casualties because Americans were committed to, we saw this horrendous looming evil of the Third Reich that we knew was a threat, was going to come across the ocean at its first opportunity, had to be stopped. And you had people, again, this enormous operation of people who made these huge sacrifice, storming the beaches of Normandy to stop that evil. They did it. They did it out of devotion to their country, to their families, to their children, to their children's children. Okay. We have the Iran war right now. Iran has been waging war against the United States. They've tried several times to build a nuke. They keep trying. The minute they get one, they plan to use it. These are people that fly planes into buildings. They don't worry about repercussions of their actions. If they can commit evil, they will. And what are the Americans right now so opposed to the Iran war? It's such a horrible thing. We need to stop Trump. We need to give up. We need to wave the white flag. Let them have their nukes. Why? Because we might face the prospect of $4 a gallon gas. Okay, you talk about getting soft. This is what softness does. A war is never fought to annihilate your enemy. A war is fought to convince your enemy that it's not worth fighting back. And as we get soft, we're 90% there.
In fact, that's what Sun Tzu says. The greatest battle to win is the one you never have to fight. And you do that by convincing the enemy that it's not going to do you any good to fight. You end up losing. And so sometimes that's done with deception and other things. But that was Sun Tzu's point in The Art of War. And we have changed. You're correct. I mean, we call that generation of the 30s and the 40s the greatest generation because they did that without regard for any personal gain that they were going to get out of it. You know, some kid enlisting in the Marines in 1941, that salary was never going to match what he could have made in a defense plant. Than to just staying home and working in a defense plant. But what was the old saying? It was one of the guys in Band of Brothers. You know, they had those little interviews with the actual folks who had served in the 101st Airborne. He said on 1941, he had heard or knew of people who had committed suicide because they had been rated 4F. In other words, they wouldn't be able to enlist in the Army. Wow.
Yeah, they were so committed to the cause.
Right. But that was all without regard for their own personal gain. Well, now the first question that people ask you when you're running for office, a lot of them, I won't say all of them, but there's an enormous number, is that, well, before I vote for you, what are you going to do for me?
Yeah.
Right. It's not what are you going to do for the state of Missouri? What are you going to do for my community?
Or even what are you going to do for my kids and grandkids?
Yeah. What are you going to do for me?
Yeah.
How do I benefit out of voting for you?
That person that you just described, and unfortunately there's more and more of them, that person can be steered in any direction that the unscrupulous politician wants to steer them. For example, you mentioned these people that were, when they were rated 4F, their reaction to it. In the aftermath of 9/11, the recruiting offices across America were overflowing. The same mentality. 25 years later now, New York is under the heel of an Islamist who supported those terrorists. Why? Because the people of New York, now, there's massive vote fraud, and we all know that stuff, but the people of New York in general did not see any of that moral component that you just described.
Well, we saw what happens in 2020 when the people react to voter fraud.
Well, the system is there to shut them down, but that's because of all the other pieces that we let be set in place.
Now, that's true. That was an accumulation of things over time. It's like I tell people all the time. I said it's a whole lot easier to keep it than it is to try to get it back. And I said we have sat by idly and watched it bleed away from us, institution by institution, from everything from our institutions of higher learning all the way down to our grade schools, and sit and watched it be done, and totally, well, I don't even know if ignored is the right word. We could see it happening, but no one was willing to stand up and do something about it.
I want to save that statement of yours to keep versus restore, because that one I would urge you, shout that as loudly as you can. That's the message that we need to be telling America right now. I'm probably going to, by the way, plagiarize that and use that in
feel free.
Because that is exactly what happens with these things. You look at Cuba, you look at China, you look at Tiananmen Square, the things that these people were trying to do. Most Americans still don't understand the reality of what's going on in Iran, because it was that same thing where you had Jimmy Carter. I call him the father of modern militant Islam. Jimmy Carter worked with the Marxists and the Islamists to throw out the Shah, because he somehow thought it would be to his political advantage to do so. It blew up in his face. We had the hostage crisis and everything. And yet those people, to my absolute shock, I found out that the Islamic population of Iran is about 20-some%. The vast majority are oppressed by that 20%, because guess who has all the guns? Point is, it happened. The Shah was vilified. It was a typical Alinsky attack, because everybody knew the Shah was just mean. He was just oppressive. And what
Secret
they got,
police, right?
yeah, what they got was 1,000 times worse. And yet suddenly, by the time they realize it, they're in no position to actually fight back. And they've been trying to fight back for half a century. And we saw them die by the thousands in the streets just this last winter. And they still, guess who has all the guns?
Right.
So the important thing we've got to do with America between now and, frankly, this November, the window is narrow. We've got to sound the clarion call.
Well, so I'm glad you brought that up, because there is one image that is burned into my psyche from that time period you're talking about, is the young man who's standing in front of a tank in Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
Hit one by himself. And so we can assume, and probably rightly so, that he didn't last very long after that. That that he was probably dealt with by the government, but they just couldn't do it on TV.
Oh, they did. As a matter of fact, I'll be honest with you. If you go back and look at the imagery, I mean, that was his last moment of life right there. The tank just went going. He didn't stop that tank.
No, but the point of it is that was one man willing to do something, right? And what's the old saying? I don't even remember who's the quote is from, but evil prevails when good men do nothing.
Edmund Burke of the British Parliament back in the 1700s. And that's it. And again, it comes down to they're willing to do what it takes to destroy America, especially right now, because it's easy for them. Mm-hmm. They get out, they lie, they cheat. You mentioned earlier waste and taxes. I tell people, do the math. If you have $1 billion, which state legislatures now throw about, pretty easily, $1 billion. If only 1% of that is used to grease palms and influence people, if the other 99% is spent efficiently and properly and legally, and only 1% is used to sway people, that's $10 million. You can buy an awful lot of Cayman Islands accounts for $10 million. Now, you tell me if you've ever seen a government program that was 99% efficient. The numbers are much worse than that.
Some years back, I had several concerns about our Missouri Senate, and I had a conversation with a lobbyist, and I said, so let's assume I had a piece of legislation that I wanted to get done. I said, could I get it done with $1 million? And this was his response. Now, this is a guy who works in the system. He goes, you could get it done for a lot less than that. He said, certainly a $500,000 would get you whatever you wanted. Now, that was a guy who worked inside the system and understood how it works. Well, as you just rightly pointed out, that's selling it pretty cheap, right? I mean, if you're going to be in that business, at least sell it for what it's worth, right?
Yeah, there's a lot more than $1 million floating around to be used that way, what that says. Now, let's just take it back again to the basic biblical principles of right and wrong. Which side is actually going to operate on that level? Your Christian conservatives, your evangelicals, or your Marxists?
Well, I've seen it pollute a lot of good men. Like I tell folks all the time, nobody goes to Jeff City saying, "Oh, I want to be a crook, and that's why I'm going to Jeff City."
Yeah.
Nobody says that. It's what happens to you when you get up there. It is very difficult to swim upstream. It's
Yep.
so much easier just to go with the flow, and unfortunately, a lot of folks have chosen to do that.
Well, they punish you for being honest, is what happens.
No, that's true, but of past pro tems of our Senate, I don't know. Hopefully, the new one will be different, but the past ones have succumbed to the pressure, and it's easy to point out. And the funny thing about it is they don't realize is that how quickly they're thrown away for the next guy as soon as they're out of power. And so one would think that after seeing that over and over again, what was it that Einstein said? Doing something the same
Yeah.
way every time, expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Well, there's probably more to it than that. But the reality is that until the ones we elect are willing to stand up against it, it will continue to be that way.
And I want to backtrack on something else, that this is absolutely an issue now. It's not, unfortunately, an issue of Democrat versus Republican. It is absolutely an issue of left versus right.
Uh-huh.
And again, taking this back to the Wyoming situation, you have leftist Democrats that are perfectly willing to put that R by their name if that's what is expedient in the moment. There is a little ray of sunshine back there that right now it's a very long shot, but just an extreme uphill battle. But there was a very good, very outspoken conservative who saw in the governor's race, you had two conservatives running against a rhino. The rhino gets the majority of the vote, and now we have a total sellout by the name of Eric Barlow, who's the Republican candidate. And the party loves it at this point because after they've been backstabbing conservatives the whole primary season, they say, okay, now we need party unity. Now we need to all, stop the circular firing squads, rally around our own. We've got our candidate. You need to support him. And
right.
The vast majority of conservatives typically, it's like, well, you know what? What are you going to do? Vote for the Democrat? Well, you got a Democrat who calls himself a Democrat. You got a Democrat who calls himself a Republican. That's your choice. There is a candidate who positioned herself strategically in the Constitution Party of Wyoming.
Oh,
her name is Rebecca Bextel. Keep an eye on this because it's a long shot that she can win. But she's the person standing in front of the tank.
Right.
Okay. And she's setting an example with this. What she said is, I'm a conservative. If either of the two conservatives wins the primary, I'm going to drop out as the Constitution Party candidate. But if Eric Barlow, the rhino, wins, I'm going to stay in this race. and she's in there right now. And you will start hearing her name because she's going to be, the absolute pariah of the United States of America for upsetting this apple cart. But she's telling people you do have a choice. You don't have to settle for the lesser of two Democrats.
Mm-hmm. Well, so those kind of choices have been left with us before. I remember the Ross Perot run back, which created Bill Clinton. Now, you're correct. We were left with the lesser of two evils between George Bush the first and Bill Clinton. But I think if I remember correctly, early in that process, Ross Perot had actually tried to work with George Bush for that very reason, and they decided that they would just ignore him. And he ended up taking 20% of the vote. I think he took the largest vote of a third party candidate in modern history for sure. But rather than the establishment looking at that and listening to what Ross Perot had to say and try to incorporate that, they took that as a mandate to double down on their well, for lack of a better term, their rhino positions. Keep in mind that Dick Cheney was there. He was the epitome of the military-industrial complex.
Yep.
And so in a time when we probably should have been tightening the belt and using our dollars more efficiently, we accelerated that. I mean, let's face it, Reagan had pulled our military out of the doldrums, but the only way he could do that was with excessive spending. But we had flattened that curve out, so we'd finally leveled off, and we finally had a well funded and working military for the first time in several years. Well, since the end of Vietnam, and so of course Dick Cheney recognized that as an opportunity to make his buddies rich, and so we ended up with a lot of programs that none of the generals wanted, and but the defense contractors did.
Yeah.
And so we wasted enormous amounts of money in that time period for the sake of the military-industrial complex.
See, now what you're doing right now is a good example of there's two types of introspection. There's one that's based on humility, which says, am I perfect? Can I improve things? Okay. And that needs to be done. Each of us needs to be doing that. We can go back to on a personal level. As a Christian, I need to be ready to do that. But we can also do that collectively. What do we stand for and why? There's another kind of introspection. This goes probably ultimately back to Sun Tzu, that it's introspection based on fear and guilt heaped on you by your enemy, the accusers. If you let your enemy tell you how you need to well, look, you could have done better if you did things. Well, he's still trying to advance his agenda. I hear, in the wake of Tuesday, I'm hearing move to the middle, move to the middle. If anybody's telling you to move to the middle, what they're doing is telling you to let your opposition define who you are and what you stand for.
Right.
Let's look at where the middle is now compared to where it was 20 years ago. Okay. 20 years ago, a teacher who brings a drag queen into the classroom tells kids they can genitally mutilate themselves and take hormones and all of that. That teacher that they would have been dragged out, they would have thrown in jail and made to register as sex offenders. Okay, they stuck it out. They pushed their agenda. Now the middle is, well, okay, you want to do that when they're in fourth grade. You, Mr. Leftist, want to do that when they're in fourth grade. I think it's wrong, so we'll just wait until the eighth grade. Okay, so the middle, if we define right and wrong by halfway between us and the opposition, all the opposition has to do is move the goalposts. They can get us right where they want us.
Yeah, and so I love that you brought that up, because there's recent history right here in Missouri of that exact kind of philosophy. I remember when the Dobbs decision happened, which essentially overturned Roe versus Wade. There was the political class, that I'll call them, up in Jefferson City, who are paid lots of money to consult to politicians. And I characterize these folks as 12-year-olds that have been involved in one election, and all of a sudden they're experts, right? Well, so their advice at the time was, if you're in one of these purple districts, you need to tamp down your pro-life position. Because the suburbs basically are up in arms over this deal, and you need to protect yourself, make sure you get reelected. And so I had conversations with some of those politicians who were hand wringing over this. I said, so where were you at when you first got elected? But were you adamantly pro-life? What was your position in abortion? And it was pretty much like the rest of us, right? Life begins at conception, et cetera, because that was the popular thing to do. Not for me. It was part of my ingrained.
It was the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. For some others, it was a political choice, right? When we talk about choices, but so the advice they were giving us was, for those people in those districts, you need to make sure you get reelected, so therefore you need to run away from babies. Well, so I'd ask those folks, I'd say, well, what was your position prior to over, oh, well, I was, pro in life at conception. And I said, somehow you got elected again. The only thing that you can accomplish by running away from your original position is alienating both sides.
Yep.
Those folks who vote pro-choice are not going to vote for you anyway.
Right. You can't do enough to appease them. The only thing you're going to do is alienate your base.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you something that is going on right now on steroids in Wyoming in the wake of this disastrous primary. The conservatives are. Rush used to use the term navel gazing, and again, there are some issues. You want a 10% tax reduction, and I want a 20%. There are some issues we can compromise on, and still be on the same side of the moral scale. There are other issues that are absolutely defining, and if you abandon those issues, two things. First of all, you've gone over to the dark side. Excuse me.
So,
the other thing is, in front of everybody, you've proven that you are unprincipled. And at that point, nothing about you can be trusted.
Yep. No, that's one of my favorite things that I tell certainly young legislators up there is that, I will compromise. I will negotiate with you all day long on the nuts and the bolts, right?
Right.
On $10 versus $20, but when you start compromising on your core values, your own principles, well, then they've won.
Yep.
They've won. And you have to hold true to who you are, regardless of the outcome of an election. The election that's a fleeting thing, especially in a term limited state legislature. I tell people this one all the time. I gave up about $135,000 a year by being a state representative. And that sounds like me whining, but the guy who came before me was a bone doctor, for Pete's sake. How much money did he give up every year by being in the state legislature? So he basically traded, $33,500 a year for millions of dollars in income. And so it's those kind of folks who don't need the job. That's who we should be electing, that can live without it. But too many times what we do is that we elect the person. Pick your U.S. congressperson, the one that looks the best on TV, the one who has the most ads, whatever. And it goes back to what you and I started with there is how much we're affected by the absolute bombarding of us with ads of all different kinds. And we don't do a whole lot of research like what you were talking about, like, hey, get your information from two sources, or at least. And AI plays into that in a big way.
Oh, these days, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, I hate to cut this short. I want to go over some comments real quick and then give you a chance to plug your book here. So we've got first from Lisa. Good morning, Don and JP. Good morning, Lisa. Is Lisa and Dave?
Good morning, Lisa.
For watching the show this morning. Patricia Oden Maxwell, I happen to know her very well. Sounding good, looking good. Go team. Rico Camino says good morning to everybody. Lisa Freed, good morning, go team. These are actually some new names here on a couple of these. Another new one, Andrea Galaria. Hopefully I said that correctly. If I did, just apologize. Good morning, Dave. Again, Dave not here this morning, but good morning. And then Kathy Sanford Dillon, finally, happy Friday. Love to all. Have a fantastic weekend. She coined that phrase, by the way, happy Friday. That's something that Dave always likes to make sure and point out. And then, of course, from the show, happy Friday to everybody.
Who is this one here? Oh, no. Okay, I recognize him.
Yep. Does he kind of look familiar?
Yeah, he kind of does.
And then Jeffrey Bradshaw, who was our first guest before you came on, Chris, saying good stuff, Chris. So there you go.
Well, I caught the last few minutes of John, and I would have to return the compliment there. He was nailing things.
Yeah, JJ, that's why he's our leadoff to the show, has been for about 14, 15 years now, I believe. So this is the link to Chris's book. It's also in the comments section. The book here, Rules for Defeating Radicals. Make sure you pick up a copy. The day and age we're living in. Again, Chris, I made a comment to Don before you came on earlier. I never thought there'd be a day where I would agree with so much that Bill Maher is saying and disagree with Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
We are in that time. And
Isn't that
even
weird?
Bill Maher, a longtime Democrat, is already saying the way the Democrat Party is going in the socialist movement, if they keep going, my vote is up for grabs. That's a big statement. He is, and we actually had some bits that we played on last week's show where he's sounding the alarm on the direction of the Democrat Party. And this from a long time Democrat. People need to pay attention to that.
Can I add one quick comment to
Sure.
that? Going back to something that Don was describing a few minutes ago. When people are at that point, the last thing that you're going to do to inspire them is to try and be a light beer version of what they're getting disillusioned with.
I love that. That is so true. Yeah.
Very good point. And again, link to Chris's book is in the comments. Make sure and check it on Amazon. We definitely want to support him and his efforts to get the truth out there. So, Chris, also want to give you a chance. Are you still writing anywhere or anything else?
You know, I may be doing a little bit of writing here coming up soon. I'm looking at putting in a kind of a post-mortem on the Wyoming primary last week.
That would be good.
It's going to be called Wyoming's Lurch Towards Mamdani Land. And I'll send you a copy if I get it, if you're interested.
Hey, also, I want to throw out an endorsement on the Chris's book. I haven't gotten all the way through it yet, Chris, but I have got through the first few pages, and had I not been busy with something else going on at the time, I would have probably got through more of it. But now I've got time to actually get to the end of it. But what I've read so far is pretty darn good. Big endorsement of the book.
Thank you both so much. You guys have a great weekend.
All right. You too. Thanks, Chris.
Bye-bye.
All right. We are going to go and take our first commercial break. We're a few minutes overdue, but I didn't want to cut into JJ and Chris's time. And we're going to take a commercial break. And then when we come back here in the next few minutes in studio, we'll have Joel Dalton, who helped create the Rolla Pregnancy Resource Center. And he's got a lot to say on some of the stuff going on recently. So take a second, listen to our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Honey, what are you doing?
What does it look like I'm doing?
It looks like you're filling up a swimming pool.
Yep, I'm filling up a swimming pool.
In our living room?
How else am I going to watch the game and stay cool?
If your AC is on the fritz, call Hartley's Climate Control. Hartley's is the area's best in HVAC repairs, installs, and maintenance. Knowledgeable, honest, and dependable. Serving Rolla and the surrounding areas for commercial or residential needs. Hartley's Climate Control. Community born, community raised, community serving.
Call Hartley's Climate Control today at 573-368-3163.
Never be too coy to tell your friends and family about Koi Sushi and Hibachi. Celebrate the best Chinese-Japanese restaurant in the Midwest. Call 573-426-5551 to make a reservation or order takeout. Locally owned, 1808 North Bishop, Rolla, Missouri.
We can sum up McDonald's new crispy chicken sandwich in one word. Crispy. But also juicy and tender. Okay, it's crispy, juicy, tender. All one word. But then, also pickle. Oh, and potato bun, which is two words. Okay, we can't sum up our new crispy chicken sandwich in one word, so you'll just have to try it to understand it. Order ahead on the McDonald's app at participating McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Merrill's Quarry and Asphalt, 40 years serving cities, counties, and everyday businesses with driveways for people who live and work in our little piece of heaven right smack dab in the middle of America. Call 573-578-9101 for your free estimate of rocking, rolling, paving, driveways, sealing, and striping too. That's 573-578-9101 for your free estimate.
Your home is your castle. You don't need unwanted hassle. Don't let those creatures move in to stay. Let us protect your investments, that's what we're all about. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day. Plank is locally owned and family operated right here in Rolla, a Google preferred business. Our customer service and your satisfaction is our number one goal. So call Plank today at 368-3333. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day.
At your locally owned Price Chopper, our standards are high because we know yours are. See for yourself what an incredible fresh selection of grocery items we have in store. Talk to our expert meat associates about what you're looking for. They're happy to meet any special requests like custom cuts, or see our expert produce associates on how to pick out the best fruits and vegetables. Quality in the deli means fresh, full flavor, and always delicious. If you're craving fresh baked goodness, we have that too. You can expect the best selection and the best value while interacting with our friendly and knowledgeable employees. You can find what you're looking for fast and easily at the best prices at Price Chopper. Fresh savings every day. Insurance going up like crazy? Daniel and Henry Insurance is one of the largest private insurance companies in the world. Richard Boyette, 314-444-5011. He's my guy at Daniel and Henry for 10 years. Business or personal, call Richard at 314-444-5011. He's the best.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Bob Willis, an author and writer, and I write nature books. I live here in a ranch on the Ozarks and have published many books over 2 decades of writing. The Trout Adventure series of books was about traveling the world with a camera and a fly rod. The Last Buffalo in Kansas is a true story about one family's journey through 100 years of American history. A couple of years ago, I decided to write a children's nature series of books. 2 of those books have been published. The Adventures of Dog is a story about a puppy that grows up on a ranch in the Ozarks and has fabulous adventures. The Adventures of the Cats R Us Gang is about a group of cats that band together to protect the ranch from a dastardly group of raccoons. Wonderful stories for children, wholesome, about nature and the Ozarks. They're available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and in Walmart even. They're available locally at Reader's Depot. Hey, take a look at them. Thanks a lot.
At Town & Country Bank, we've got all the perks of a national bank, like online banking, quick loan approval, and you can deposit your check from your phone. But that's not why our customers love us. They love us because we still offer hometown customer service. Stop by one of our 2 Rolla locations and let our friendly team remind you how special hometown banking can be. We're locally owned and will take the time to understand your needs. Smart, friendly solutions. Town & Country Bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
All right, we are back from the commercial break, and of course, our guest host Don Mayhew here, and of course,
who fell asleep
Dalton
at the wheel just there.
Oh no, you're good.
Second.
You're good. You guys were having such a good conversation. I didn't want to interrupt it, but we are back live on the show. Joe Dalton from the Pregnancy Resource Center. Joe, welcome in.
Right here in Rolla, Pregnancy Resource Center, right here in Rolla.
Yep, great to be here. I was wondering how this works. Is this when I tell stories about Dave Weinbaum since he's not here? I mean,
absolutely.
You absolutely can. Now, he is listening, by the way, but
but
he's not here, so
he can't defend himself except in text, and we know how well he spells, right? So yeah, any story that you've got, I usually tell him I've heard a wild one about him, and I tell him who I heard it from, but I never tell him the story.
Right.
So then he gets concerned about that from then on. So how's things going over to Pregnancy Resource Center?
Things are going very well. We're very busy. The things, I don't know how many people realize this, but the pro-life movement had to really pivot after the last Amendment 3.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And basically, I don't think Planned Parenthood is happy about what's going on right now either, because what's happening is people are buying abortion pills by mail, and they're showing up at the doorstep. And so we went from a time of working with clients that, that were calling us, considering getting the abortion pill.
Right.
but we knew that they had a 72-hour waiting period. We knew that they had to drive to St. Louis to get it. So it gave us a little time. But now these ladies are calling, and they probably have the pills right there on their coffee table, wondering, trying to go back and forth whether they should take it or not. So it's a much more urgent thing. And we've had a lot more abortion pill reversals. So it's good. We call it a second choice. So basically they chose poorly. They chose abortion, but immediately had regret, and were able to help reverse that.
Oh, good. And I was just going to ask you about that. What do you think that number looks like for you guys right now? What percentage of your client base is in that category?
Is reversal?
Yeah, it's reversal.
I don't think it even hits a 2% realm yet. I mean, we're advertising as best as we can, but Google is blocking the advertising, and so is Facebook. So for whatever reason, these big corporations don't like abortion pill reversal, and it's very controversial to them. So if we string those words together, it immediately gets kicked. In fact, it harms the ratings on our website just having those words strung together.
So there was a couple of stories that came out this last week that they didn't feel. I mean, they didn't sound like they were connected in any way, but they both shared the exact same tagline, and that was mRNA. And so they were promoting this vaccination.
Oh, lovely.
That was, would prevent certain kinds of cancers. Okay, so I did a little bit of research on that, and I didn't write it down, but folks, you can do the same research. So for the kind of cancers that they're talking about, this preventing, are the kind of cancers that came up more prevalent because of a depression in the immune system caused by, guess what? The mRNA vaccine.
That's fun.
And so there was that story, and then there was another story related where Fauci's, I won't call him even second in command, but somebody in his, I'm talking about Anthony Fauci.
Oh, yeah.
NIH director that basically, as far as I'm concerned, is guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, where one of his subordinates confessed to and pled to falsifying records and eliminating emails and things like that. That's essentially against the Open Records Act, and took that plea agreement. Well, that guy wasn't operating in a vacuum.
Right.
He wasn't the only one doing that, and so one wonders how much of that communication that went back and forth was all about, we've got the perfect opportunity for a test bed for our mRNA. Basically the population of the world. And so now we can test these various things. In order to accomplish that, the story went on that vaccination. The story went on that they were bragging about being able to design a vaccination specifically for you and your kind of cancer. So genetically, using your genetics, right, in order to fight this particular cancer. But here was the most amazing part of that, in the commercials that you see on TV about it. It's only a once every year injection. It's not even a cure, right? It's not like your measles vaccine or any of those other vaccines that you are tied to Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and Merck for the rest of your life from a problem that they created in your immune system. Now, isn't that amazing?
Wait, so this sounds familiar to me. The name Bill Gates comes to mind because everybody thinks that he got rich off the computers and the software. He actually got rich by creating a virus and then creating the antivirus for the computer virus.
Right. So
sounds kind of similar, right?
Human version, correct. Wow. So you can kind of see where I'm going with that, or maybe you can't because my brain works in probably mysterious ways. But how soon will it be before you have the anti-pregnancy vaccination?
Yeah.
Right.
It's so when it comes to the abortion pill reversal, and I go around and around with this, these big corporations being upset about it. State of California is suing Heartbeat International for to try to stop them from doing it in California. Well, I don't understand why they're upset. I mean, she took the abortion pill. You have your money.
Mm-hmm.
Now she changed her mind. Isn't that her prerogative? I mean, she's a woman. She changed her mind. You're upset about
choice,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Weird how that works. Choice goes both ways.
Yeah.
Right?
So
unidirectional choice.
But they already have their money. They already spent $300 on the abortion pill. So and it's
well, it must mean that the after effects of an abortion are worth some money too. Then, right? Wouldn't that make sense? That somehow somebody's making money off of that carnage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I said all that facetiously because you and I both know that they were,
right,
and continue to do so in some jurisdictions.
Right.
Yeah, and someone had mentioned earlier about this currently our law of the land here in Missouri, because of the old Amendment 3, was that you could kill a baby right up to birth. No, that's actually not what it says. Is that you can kill a live baby. That is up to the quote unquote healthcare professional and the mother to make that decision.
Right.
And so in
each case,
yes, in every single case,
mm-hmm.
right. And I don't mean jokingly in this particular case. What I mean is that it doesn't stretch the logic too much for then that to be an excuse to even go farther, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because remember all the stuff about the governor of Virginia talking about, that could be as old as him, not specifically, but relying on that same crazy science. Well, it's not really a human, even at 2 years old. And it's like, are you kidding me? Right? And that point got drove home this last session when we did the Born Alive bill. You might be familiar with it.
Yep.
And whenever we TAFP'd that, finally passed it and sent it to the governor's desk, there was about 20, well, not that many. There were 18 people probably in the gallery who shouted obscenities at us. And I'm sitting here looking at these people that is born alive, right? That was, if the child is born alive, you will take extraordinary measures to try to maintain life. They're advocating murder.
Sure.
And so they have no problem whatsoever advocating the murder of another human being. And I sit there and I wonder how many of them would lay down in front of vehicles at the where the death penalty was being applied, right? With the not supporting an innocent human life and then supporting someone who did something so egregious to deserve the death penalty. I mean, the logic just doesn't go together. So those were some of the things that I ran across this week. What other kind of stuff did you have on your plate, Joe?
Well, I've been going through this saga, man. So we have the maternity home bridges, and we needed.
I love that program.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, talk about it a little bit. So for the folks who don't know.
So Bridges is a maternity home here in Rolla, but it's not your average maternity home. Most maternity homes basically tell the moms, yeah, you can live here if you follow the rules, but you got to be out of here by the time the kid's 8 months old. So we don't do it that way. We're focused on bringing that woman to self-sufficiency. So we don't care how you got homeless. We don't care what went wrong unless it's drugs. We're not going to bring druggies in.
Right.
But when you leave here, you'll be debt free and you'll be on your own 2 feet. And that's the program. And we've
hand up, not a handout.
That's right.
Yeah.
So in fact, 5 of our alumni now are homeowners. So they went from being homeless to being homeowners. And they're no longer debt free because they have a mortgage now, but that's okay. They don't have credit cards. So, but yeah, one of those 5 is actually our daughter-in-law, and it was the most beautiful story. But she, after she moved out of the home, she asked how we would feel if she got to know her son better. And so she was admiring him from afar.
Right.
And just so everybody understands, the maternity home moms, they've burned probably a lot of bridges in their life before they get to us.
Right.
You know, it wasn't the first thing that went wrong being homeless and pregnant.
Right.
So a lot of them will come to our Thanksgiving celebration. They'll come to our Christmas celebration. So they get to know our whole family. And that's how Faith got to know.
Well, and having met several of those folks, because you bring them to the banquet that you have every year, and I always am marveled at their attitude about life, and so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, is that something that came out of the education process there? Because I have a hard time believing that this person ever got themselves in that position. And I mean, I was a young person once. I understand how all of those things work, but to have all of a sudden this bright sunshine of I can do anything, which I think is what you instill in them, that they're not powerless. They have complete control of their life.
Yeah. And we have many examples of that, but Faith, our daughter-in-law was just talking about, when we first met her, if she had asked if she could date our son, we'd say, "Oh, hell no." I mean, she was a train wreck. And so, love you, Faith, if you're listening to this. You know you were. So,
they say the same thing about me, by the way, but I'm a continuous train wreck.
So not only is she a success, but she is now a mother of 4. She has written a book, and she'll probably be on this program next week to share her book.
What?
So.
I couldn't guest host next week?
Well, maybe we can change that schedule for you. But anyway, I started the story by telling you that the bridges thing.
Right.
What hit me in the face, like I didn't see it coming, is we needed to buy an additional home because we need to expand the program.
Right.
So that meant that my wife was on the home market.
Right.
And we happened to bump into a house that she fell in love with. So at 62 years old, we had to move. And I'm still sore from that. I'm still recovering from that. But now we bought the other Bridges house too, but this is just on a personal note. Wow. I'm just amazed at how much junk you collect.
Ooh, tell me about it.
In your life, it's just amazing. So, so that just happened. So we've got the new Bridges house. Our building is under a huge remodeling project.
Yeah, I saw that.
72 Center.
Yeah.
So that's big news happening.
Right. So the other thing I did want to now I know you have at least one alumni, but you may have more. At least one of your alumni is a registered nurse now. Is that not correct? Or at least on her way to being a registered nurse.
Yeah, she's currently a surgery tech and on her way to be a registered nurse.
Yeah,
but we have several that have taken that medical route. That basically. So the curriculum for Bridges is called My Ridiculously Amazing Life, and my amazing bride is the one that authored this curriculum, and she was
the brains behind the operation. Obviously.
Yeah.
I had to throw a plug out there for Jane. You do great work, Jane.
Yeah. So we ended up, I mean, that is really the secret sauce, if you will, behind what we do. So that curriculum will literally walk them from homelessness to self-sufficiency on the other end.
Right.
But in the very beginning, the coach is trying to get out of her, what did you want to be when you grew up? Try to figure out what direction to go with her. And then we'll start the schooling and start down in that direction. And there's lots of things that are required of them, but if they stay on the program, there is a big light at the end of the tunnel. So
yeah, but it's demonstrated. A lot of the things that we take on faith, we're not sure when we're stepping off that curb or what's down at the bottom of it, but the reality is that you have so many examples that are success stories in there, and you've just mentioned a couple of them, but I'm certain that you could go on and on about it. But the main thing that I took from talking to you and Jane about the program was that how it's constantly reminding them that they're in control, right? So they've gone from a state of their life being completely out of control with nowhere to turn, to they moving into the program and then learning something maybe they had never learned before and never was given to them because, maybe poor parenting or whatever brought them to where they were at. But it's your life. Right. You're in control, right? And here, I can show you. I can prove it to you. You are in control.
Absolutely.
And that's what you see in the faces of these young ladies. And that's the thing I've always been impressed with every time I've gone to one and met one of these ladies about how, they are upbeat. They are excited about their future. And I'm thinking to myself, how is that person ever in that position in the first place? But we know how that happens, right?
Right. So one of the things that bewildered you when you first saw the program of Bridges is that the state doesn't fund this at all.
Not a bit, not a dime.
So it's all courtesy of our generous donors.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful for them. And what we're walking into next week or next month is our Walk for Life. And that is our second largest fundraiser of the year. So I wanted to promote that a little bit if I could. So
I'm actually getting downloading the flyer, took a picture of it. I'm gonna have it up on the screen here in just a minute. So.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. But great to mention where go ahead.
Lions Club Park, it's going to be September 26th, 10 a.m. We want you to be a part of it. Last year we had over 400 of our area's pro-life faithful turn out, and it was an absolute blast.
Yeah.
We've had, but bottom line is, people say, hey, am I really going to be helping the pro-life cause by coming to this? Am I really going to be helping? And not only are you going to be helping, you're actually going to be saving babies. Last year, this event raised enough to save 115 babies from abortion. It sounds cold, but we know what our overhead is, and we know how many babies were saved last year. So it's about $1,000 to save a baby. So we want you to be a part of this event. So go to supportmyprc.com and click on the Walk for Life thing, and it'll walk you through that. Now, when you register for this event, your very own Walk for Life page is created for you, and it makes it super easy to share on Facebook or any social media, asking people to sponsor you in your Walk for Life. And that's the way it works. You ask people to sponsor you in your Walk for Life or your Run for Life, and that's how we raise the money.
Yeah, we'd have it on the screen right now.
Oh, good. Oh, isn't he cute?
Yeah. And so did you want to mention anything about the prizes?
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount at the bottom first on the back. I don't know if you got the back on there yet, but basically all of our corporate sponsors have underwritten this event, and they've also purchased these amazing prizes you can earn. So the more money you raise, the more prizes you earn. And it's important to point out that if you get to the very top, $10,000 raised, and believe me, we're actually going to have 4 or 5 people do that. You get to pick one item from each category. So it's not just one big prize; it's all the prizes.
Oh.
So if you raise $1,000 or more, you get first of all you get to be a part of Joe's Dinner Club. Okay, Joe's Dinner Club is a celebration. It's not a fundraiser. We just go out to Colton's for dinner and basically celebrate what we've done. So if you can imagine one room with 80 or 90 people that raised over $1,000 to save a baby, you want to be a part of that room. It's a good bunch of good people there. So you automatically get a Colton's gift certificate, and then you get to pick one of those prizes: the Yeti water bottle, or metal detector kind of thing.
So you could, use the metal detector to get another $1,000 that they could donate.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. That's some hard work, though. But no, but putting it out there that as a donor, if you don't want to walk or run with us, we ask you to go to the same website, supportmyprc.com, click on the Walk for Life link, and sponsor one of our walkers or runners, or sponsor several of them.
Right.
And now any donation over $100, you get a 70% tax credit. So most of your money's coming back to you. And if you donate $1,000, you've saved a baby, and you're giving at least $700 back at tax time.
Yeah. So in a tax credit, right? And how important that is. Here a couple of years ago, we expanded that tax credit to increase the amount available. So there was a very large commitment by the state legislature. Now, I will tell you, unfortunately, it took more than a couple of years to get that through, that increase. But you talk about a beneficial tax credit. Now, keep in mind, folks, these are the things that the government would otherwise be participating in, and that's the reason why that it is so important to support that and support the PRC here, and because you are doing a good thing. And you said, how much does it cost to save a baby approximately?
About $1,000. Yeah.
About $1,000, and so that person is certainly worth our investment.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
So what else is going on? When's the banquet this year, by the way?
It's March 6th, I think.
March the 6th. Okay. I knew it was always around March. So.
Yeah, it's very early March. We have to dance around the St. Patrick's Day celebration because we don't want a bunch of drunk people on the street when people come in for that, so.
I wouldn't know anything about that, being a former alumni of UMR, not Missouri S&T. We didn't do things like that back in the day, but so I am glad to hear that. And even if you can't make the walk, be sure to put on your tentatively on your calendar.
It's March 18th. I was way off.
March 18th.
Yeah.
That's awful close to March 17th, by the way.
That's right after it. Yeah.
So. Maybe by then the festivities will have died down. But yes, absolutely attend one or the other. I can tell you from personal experience, they are both absolutely exceptional events. They are. It's both of the events. You will walk away with having your heart lifted. That absolutely there is things that are, we're moving forward. We're saving babies, and that you can have an integral part of that.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you for your support. But at any rate, if you want to learn more about the Pregnancy Center on that website, supportmyprc.com, you'll get to see a lot of great stories. The subpage that's entitled Brave Mothers are video recordings of all those banquet testimonies that you talked about. Mm-hmm. So you get to hear directly from the moms how we help them and where your money goes. So I could talk all day long about it, but to hear directly from them is so powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful.
I can testify to that one.
Yeah.
It is.
Yep.
And some of those stories, I mean, well, not just some of them, but they, I usually get pretty emotional but there's the good news at the end. And so you hear how that young lady ended up where she was at, but then what's happening in her life now, and which is just impressive. It's impressive what you do with the Lord's work out there, and we thank you so much for that.
We thank you. So can I put in one more plug? Change
absolutely.
Hats?
This is what we're about today is plugging.
Yeah.
So let's plug away.
So I'm changing hats. This is for the Knights of Columbus.
Another good organization.
So Rolla Knights of Columbus is celebrating their 100th anniversary this year. But one of our fundraisers, and we always have fundraisers, is we raffle off a trip for 3 to Vatican City. So basically, you don't have to go to the Vatican City, but since we're Catholic, we say trip for 3 to Vatican City, so you can bring your favorite priest with you. But it's a and believe me, that makes Father our best salesperson.
That's right. Absolutely.
So So the tickets are $20 each, or 6 for $100. Go to RollahKofC.org. So it's not Kentucky Fried Chicken, it's Knights of Columbus. So it's KofC.org.
But if it helps you remember that, right? It's not the first thing that pops up in the Google search. Go down 10 or 12 in the Google search.
Yeah, it's we've done this 12 years, and it's funny. Out of all the years, only one couple has gone to Vatican City. You can go wherever you want. So what happens is the winner. We don't hand the check to the winner. We hand it to the travel agent, $7,500, and it's between you and the travel agent after that. So people have gone to Greece. They've gone to, just to the beach somewhere,
right.
Costa Rica, whatever. So it's a great fundraiser, and I should point out we only sell 1,000 tickets. So are you trying to find the website? Yeah.
So
it's Rolla K of OFC.org.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm seeing it come up.
But maybe you should have as a fundraiser the Colonel Sanders impersonator contest.
Yeah,
that might be a fundraiser.
.org.
Oh, that's why.
I don't have enough hair to be a Colonel Sanders impersonator.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. So I don't really have any Dave Weinbaum stories. I was just joking.
Let's just make one up.
Yeah.
What is it we want to make up?
But
I caught him out in the parking lot one day directing traffic, and I know he does it quite frequently, but it was like, boy, this is a target of opportunity right here. So I was going to pull up to him and make an order in a made up foreign language and see if he could handle it. Right.
No, we've been blessed to have the Weinbaums support us for a long time. And
absolutely. Good people.
Yeah. Outspoken pro-life advocate, and he'll be a part of the Walk for Life as well. And
yep. He's not going to walk very far, but he will be out there.
Well, for a couple of years, he brought that finger from the drive-through, and he was directing traffic for the 5K. So when they cross the Lions Club Drive there, the 5K runners, somebody's got to be there to protect him, right?
Right.
So he had his finger out there waving it.
We have to point out that we're talking about the index.
Yeah,
finger,
it's not a middle finger. It's a big index yellow finger.
It's the index finger that he uses directing traffic in his parking lot. He's probably got one in his back pocket that's for other uses, but no, that's thank you very much for all you do. So we covered the 5K. We talked briefly about the banquet. It's coming up March 18th. Make sure folks put that on your calendar. They talked about the prizes and your and all these fine folks who are supporting you, the sponsors for all of that stuff, and any other way that folks can get involved. You obviously have a donation portion of your website. Is that correct?
Sure. SupportMyPRC.com has a donate now button. We wouldn't miss that. So, but I would like to encourage everybody to come tour our facility. If you're local, it's really worth your time. You get a feeling for what we do. And one of my favorite stories is Kelsey. Kelsey, I tell this story a lot because Kelsey's mom did a bad thing, but from 10 years old on, Kelsey was told two things. Absolutely. She was told, don't you dare get pregnant in college like I did. So it was pounded into her head all of her life. And so here she is, a junior at S&T, pregnant. She knows two things. Absolutely. She knows, number one, that she ruined her mom's life. And number two, that she shouldn't get pregnant. And there she was, pregnant. One of our hardest cases, but in our second visit with her, she came a day early. She walked in and Jane sees her. It's like, oh man, that's not a good sign, because between the first visit and the second visit, boyfriend's going to find out. And that's usually a very volatile time for us. So she shows up a day early and she walks up to Jane and says, I know I'm a day early, but I just want to, that room over there, room number 1, in all of Rolla, that's the only room I've ever sat in where I felt peace. Do you mind if I go sit in that room? Oh, wow. And Jane's like, sure. You mind if I sit with you? But what she didn't know or realize is she was feeling the Holy Spirit. She was the masterful power of coaching. My wife is a master life coach, and we have 6 life coaches on staff now. But basically, that was the beginning of her journey. And she came in 7 times before she finally chose life. And she's one of our, she was the first mom we took to the White House. But she got to go to Congress and testify in front of, just lobby at Congress. So we met with Jason Smith when, went to the senator's office as well. Who's that? Josh Hawley. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at any rate, Kelsey's story was very powerful because her mom, put that lie into her. And of course, the media puts that lie into you. Your life's going to be ruined if you get pregnant in college, right? Or if you get pregnant in high school. So Kelsey did the unimaginable. She chose life for her twins, and she graduated on time, magna cum laude. So in other words, thumb in her nose at her mom. It's like, it might have ruined your life, but it ain't going to ruin mine. And she has 2 beautiful daughters that are like 9 years old now. But it's an amazing thing. We have many stories, and another favorite is Maisie. Do I have time for this?
Sure. Yeah.
Maisie's mom, when we first met her, said, I don't want to, but I know I have to get the abortion. And so Maisie's mom was, her mother passed away the year before, and she was still in high school. So all of a sudden, she's a high school student and she's homeless. And it's just the way it worked out for her. And so she's trying to figure this out. And they finally begged her boyfriend's mom to let her move in. But the caveat was, if you get pregnant, I'm throwing both you out of here. And she was reminded of that every day. You get pregnant, I'm throwing you both out of here. Well, they got pregnant. So we came alongside them in this time of need, and we helped them with everything. And some of our clients need a little help. Some need a lot of help. But this one needed a lot of help. So we helped them get into an apartment. But before Maisie was born, they were in their own place. So now, but what most people don't realize is the statistic that 85% of the time when boyfriend and girlfriend get an abortion, they stop being boyfriend and girlfriend. There's just too much trauma there. I mean, that relationship is not going to last. So what I say is we protect families as well. We're not just saving babies, we're protecting families. So Maisie has 2 little brothers now, and mommy and daddy are married, and they're doing phenomenal. But in the spring when we had Summerfest here in Rolla.
But that was an artifact of the training that you were talking about, because you could prove that it doesn't ruin your life.
Right.
It makes your life better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we're at Summerfest, and I'm working in the Knights Columbus booth, and we're slinging burgers and bratwurst, right? So just all day long, working real hard. And I'm actually taking a break. I'm sitting down, and we had this high counter there. And all of a sudden, I see his head bouncing above the counter. And she starts screaming, Mr. Joe, Mr. Joe. And little Maisie comes running around the corner. She leapt into my arms. And it's like, she kept saying again and again, I missed you so much. I missed you so much. And, it's this little 5-year-old girl. I mean, of course, I was an important part of her beginnings, but it's not about me. I think God or her guardian angel has let her know how important I was to her beginning. Well, so that's why she loves me so much.
But that is when I grew up, that was all part of our support system. You're obviously not her uncle, but we had uncles and we had aunts, and that frequently had to act like mom and dad on occasion because mom and dad wasn't available. But we, and they, with would take the opportunity to correct us in our path, because sometimes, kids, I think when they're away from mom and dad, they can pretty much do whatever they want. But, back whenever I was growing up, you too, growing up, that we knew better, that you get a whooping just as quick from Uncle Jim as you can from dad, right? If you mess up, right?
There you go.
And that dad is going to be okay with that. So, that support system that we had in a rural community is absent today. And so sometimes there's somebody comes along like yourself and forms part of that network that child can rely on. Because I could go to my uncle even after high school, and while he would never give me money, he would say, okay, well, what can we do to fix the problem? Right. Like I remember one time I needed an alternator for a car, and he had one that was pretty close in the year. And so I didn't have the $25 or whatever it was to go to the salvage yard. And so I went to him and I said, hey, what can I do to, trade you out of that alternator? And he goes, well, he says, it's probably worth about $25, but he said, tell you what, he said, why don't you help me haul hay this weekend and we'll call it even. And well, I'm okay with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
By that time I was already out of high school, but it's those kind of things that you can do that, once again, it's not a handout. It's it's a hand up where, you can do this, but you're going to earn it, right?
Right.
And you feel so much better about it. I mean, I went back to college, and I know it sounds like an uphill both ways story, but I went to college when I had 3 kids. The difference between me and some of these young ladies was that I was married. I had me and my wife had made this decision for me to go back to college, but we had that support system. Plus, my mom and dad were still alive. Her mom and dad were still alive. So we had those building blocks that you're providing, and that's what made the difference in my success of graduated from college, being married and having 3 kids at the time, and not being successful. So it's what I wanted to point out was how important those building blocks are, and that sometimes those are missing in these ladies' lives, and we all really appreciate that you provide that kind of support. So the other thing I wanted to bring up was, if you do take the tour, the ultrasound machine that you guys got now, oh my goodness, this thing is amazing. I mean, when it says I created you in my image, you're looking at the image of God right there on that. I mean, this is like a photograph of these little kids. And I mean, I don't know how you can possibly look at that and claim that's not a human being, because talk a little bit about that new machine you guys got.
So it's a 3D 4D machine. And one of the biggest moves we've made this year is we hired a sonographer. The reason we moved that direction is we were working with lay sonographers up to that point, but the lay sonographer can only scan up to 12 weeks. An actual medical professional sonographer can do all 40 weeks. So, and the reason we went there was because of Amendment 3, because we knew that later term abortions would be happening. So, at any rate, the miracles happen in the ultrasound room all the time. And it's I have many stories around that as well. But basically, to be able to see a baby and see the baby dancing on the screen up there. And we have little tricks. So if the woman's, I wouldn't call it a trick, just point of honesty, right? So if the woman is refusing to look at the screen, like with her eyes tight shut like that, the sonographer will hit the Doppler right away to hear the heartbeat. And it's loud, baby. Oh, that's too loud. Sorry, kind of thing. And so her eyes pop open whenever that happens. So is that a trick? No, it's just life charging in. That's what it is.
So that it doesn't, when the train's coming at you on the tracks, closing your eyes doesn't change the fact that the train's still coming, right?
Right.
So,
but she knows it's a baby, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, she's not there for a toothache. So
Right.
But getting to meet that baby on the screen is just so powerful. So powerful.
And I know that I honestly, I mean, I'm a guy who is involved in technology a lot with my job, but this thing was amazing. I mean, I didn't know we had anything like that, and that it exists. Obviously, I've seen sonograms before of my kids, right? And I'm used to this grainy little image where you can make out the shape of a body. But this thing, you can see the grin on the baby's face. It is amazing.
Well, Joe, thanks so much for coming in. Again, support My PRC is the website. And, of course, the Walk for Life coming up. Information is also in the comments section. Make sure you get registered and get ready for that event on September 26th at Rolla Lions Club Park.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Joe. We're going to take
Joe.
another quick commercial break. And when we come back, we got Richard C. Jeffrey coming on here in just a minute.
All right.
With warmer temperatures right around the corner and allergies ramping up, now's the time to get those AC units serviced. At Hartley's, we pride ourselves in offering outstanding service with fast response times. With proper maintenance, you can make those hot days be a lot cooler and remove those pesky allergens that always seem to find their way into your home. Call us today so you can be living a much cooler and healthier life. Hartley's, community born, community raised, community serving.
Call Hartley's Climate Control today at 573-368-3163.
Never be too coy to tell your friends and family about koi sushi and hibachi. Celebrate the best Chinese-Japanese restaurant in the Midwest. Call 573-426-5551 to make a reservation or order takeout. Locally owned, 1808 North Bishop, Rolla, Missouri.
We can sum up McDonald's new crispy chicken sandwich in one word. Crispy. But also juicy and tender. Okay, it's crispy, juicy, tender. All one word. But then, also pickle. Oh, and potato bun, which is two words. Okay, we can't sum up our new crispy chicken sandwich in one word, so you'll just have to try it to understand it. Order ahead on the McDonald's app at participating McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Merrill's Quarry and Asphalt, 40 years serving cities, counties, and everyday businesses with driveways for people who live and work in our little piece of heaven right smack dab in the middle of America. Call 573-578-9101 for your free estimate of rocking, rolling, paving, driveways, sealing, and striping too. That's 573-578-9101 for your free estimate.
Your home is your castle. You don't need unwanted hassle. Don't let those creatures move in to stay. Let us protect your investments. That's what we're all about. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day. Plank is locally owned and family operated right here in Rolla, a Google preferred business. Our customer service and your satisfaction is our number one goal. So call Plank today at 368-3333. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day.
Busy schedule? Let your locally owned Price Chopper help you save time with online shopping. It's easy. Sign up to tcmarkets.com or download our mobile app in the App Store or Google Play. Create an account and browse through the categories and choose the items you need. When you place your order, your personal shopper will get all of the items you've selected, taking the same care you would and following your notes. We offer free curbside pickup, so you don't even have to get out of your car. Start your online order today and no online shopping fee for a limited time. Go to tcmarkets.com or download our mobile app to get started. Price Chopper. Fresher savings every day. Insurance going up like crazy? Daniel and Henry Insurance is one of the largest private insurance companies in the world. Richard Boyette, 314-444-5011. He's my guy at Daniel and Henry for 10 years. Business or personal, call Richard at 314-444-5011. He's the best.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Rob Willis, an author and writer, and I write nature books. I live here in a ranch on the Ozarks and have published many books over 2 decades of writing. The Proud Adventure series of books was about traveling the world with a camera and a fly rod. The Last Buffalo in Kansas is a true story about one family's journey through 100 years of American history. A couple of years ago, I decided to write a children's nature series of books. 2 of those books have been published. The Adventures of Dog is a story about a puppy that grows up on a ranch in the Ozarks and has fabulous adventures. The Adventures of the Cats R Us Gang is about a group of cats that band together to protect the ranch from a dastardly group of raccoons. Wonderful stories for children, wholesome, about nature and the Ozarks. They're available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and in Walmart even. They're available locally at Reader's Depot. Hey, take a look at them. Thanks a lot.
Maybe it's for a kitchen you've always wanted. Maybe it's just to have a little extra room. Whatever the reason you're considering a new home loan, it's good to know that Town & Country Bank will guide you in the right direction. Our experienced local lenders are here to help you with a new home construction, remodeling projects, and fixed and adjustable rate home loans. You can even start the process online by clicking Online Mortgage Center at tcbanks.com. Smart, friendly solutions. Town & Country Bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
All right, welcome back to the show. We're going to go to our next guest, who is Richard C. Jeffrey. And yeah, you're not Jessica Jeffrey. It's Richard C. Jeffrey and all that. Richard coming to us from a different location. Richard, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. You know, the storms that came through our area about a week ago knocked out my internet and my television, and it still hasn't come back. So
You're better off for it.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so.
Yeah, sorry you ended up with the B team today, but this how's things going, Richard?
Things are going well. I understand that you have an interest in AI. Is that correct?
Well, I have an interest in learning about AI. Some of the things that I came across this week have renewed my fear is probably not the right word, angst or skepticism. And so I was reading through an article, and there's a quote in there that kind of sums up what I'm talking about, and it quoted this CIO of a large corporation, and he says, "The time it takes us to study a new technology now exceeds that technology's relevance window."
That's how quickly things are moving, right?
And so to kind of summarize that, he went on to say what these companies we're talking about, what got them here won't get them there. That's how quick the technology changes. So that going back to that relevance thing is that the humans are having to adapt at a faster speed than we have the ability to.
Yeah, you know, it's changing so quickly. It's mind-boggling. But there's a double tsunami that's hitting us. One is AI, and the other is quantum computing.
Right.
And you put the two of them together, and their potential is limitless, while ours remains the same.
Exactly. That was kind of brought out to sort of in a sideways way in that same article, but I'm glad you brought that up. We had a show related to data centers the last time I was a guest host here, and and I had told people, I said, I don't know why you're somebody. I mean, obviously this big, huge building sitting out in the middle of nowhere creates problems going into the future, but from its impact future-wise, in 10 to 15 years, it's going to be obsolete because just like you said, quantum computing is going to come in. And I think it was Elon Musk that said, why do I care about data centers? He said, pretty soon, everything that's stored in that data center is going to fit in the space of a cell phone, and I'll put it on a satellite where I get free energy and free real estate. And that should be an epiphany for everyone. And so the proof of that is right here in Missouri, the first data center that we got, they'd signed a contract for 15 years with Ameren. Well, they didn't sign a contract for 15 years because they think electric rates are going to go down in 15 years. It's because they know in 15 years they're not even going to need that building anymore. So that's kind of where I'm probably at, is like my ability to absorb the changes that are going along are changing faster than I can absorb them.
One of my real concerns is misinformation right now. And reality, if you will. Can you trust what you're seeing?
Yeah, good point.
So AI can generate like convincing text and images and audio and all that kind of thing. My biggest fear is that it might generate something from a world leader that would lead to some type of confrontation.
Seems like I read a book about that somewhere. Starts with an R, if I remember correctly. It's mixed in with a bunch of other books in a larger book.
Could it be Revelation? Could it be?
Yeah.
So that is kind of creepy. Misinformation right now, and how do we believe what's real? We're almost going to have to develop new ways of establishing trust.
Right.
And I don't know that we will be able to do that.
Well, so I had mistakenly said, we don't have Skynet yet, but as soon as this thing gets an opposable thumb, we're going to be in real trouble. So I'm flipping through this article, and it's talking about AI-directed robots with an opposable thumb, right? They're human-shaped robots, right?
Oh, of course. There's going to be robots walking among us that will virtually look like us. I don't believe that we'll be able to tell the difference between human and robot at one point. So
last year, I went to a conference in Boston, Massachusetts, and of course, it was a political thing. There was, it was a bunch of politicians all getting together. But obviously, there were a lot of vendors that attended these things because they want us to favor their technologies when it comes up as a legislation, et cetera. And so there was a company that was partially owned by a United States firm, but mostly owned by a Japanese corporation that had a robot walking around. And, you remember the old, this wasn't a robot like from Lost in Space, right? The movement. No, this thing was completely smooth moving, had a human type gait to it. If it would have had skin and a face, then, you could, like you said, you could have mistaken it for that. And I said, so what's the limiting thing right now? And the guy who was running it, he said the battery pack, because he was following it around, not with a controller, but with this battery pack, right? That he was. And I said, so how long does that last? And he says, well, lots of moving parts in there. He said, we can probably get a couple hours out of it. But he said, that's our only limit right now, is being able to put a battery in there that lasts for a decent amount of time. And so we're seeing that moving in parallel with AI technology. In fact, AI is being used to design new batteries. And so we'll probably see that, the smalling down, the miniaturizing of batteries that will allow that.
That work is going on right now over at Argonne National Laboratory in Illinois.
Yeah.
And that's one of their main resource areas.
Yeah.
Battery miniaturization and increased capability. Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, at least from what we're aware of, where artificial intelligence is coming in to help us out is, things like running the wastewater treatment plant or running the power plant or those kind of low level decision making things where, turn this valve on when this temperature gets to a certain thing and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I watched a podcast here a while back where one of the guys is intimately involved in it, in the production of AI.
Right.
He said, that artificial intelligence is not what you need to worry about. He said, what you need to be worried about, he didn't say the true Skynet. I'll paraphrase him a little bit there. He said is artificial general intelligence. And I was wondering if you had some thoughts on artificial general intelligence.
Well, if you're talking about general intelligence, in that intelligence that is not in our control, or is that what you're referring to?
No. Well, yes, absolutely that too. But a level of artificial intelligence that, for lack of a better term, knows the difference between right and wrong. So rather than just accumulating masses of data and making, tabulations of that data to make a decision logically, it makes decisions sort of the way we make decisions, when we don't certainly don't have so more emotion. Not that the machine is emotions based, but the example that was used, which was scary, was that these guys who were trying to develop this had run a test, and apparently this test has been run 17 different times with something called anthropoid, or it's got a name. And so basically what happened was the test that they ran said, one of the creators had emailed another creator and said, hey, we're to the point where we need to phase out version 1 and institute version 2. Well, version 1 recognized it was no longer going to exist. So it went out and it sifted through emails and everything else, and then blackmailed the guy who said we're phasing out version 1. And so it was making a decision to make sure it survived, right?
Well, yeah, that's as in all life. I got to say, all life. That's
right.
The primary concern. Keeping itself alive, and
right.
I believe that AI will develop consciousness. And what's really scary is that the consciousness is a shared consciousness.
Yeah.
AI is interconnected in a way that human beings will never
right.
be.
Right.
And so when you're talking about just AI consciousness, you're talking about a mass consciousness that might cover the entire globe.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, we might be the entities that are under the control of AI on this planet.
Oh, well, so without a doubt, I often refer to the movie Idiocracy. I don't know if you've seen that movie or not, but it deals with this exact thing in a humorous way, more satirical, I think, than humorous, but where future humans cannot do anything until the computer tells them to do it, or when to do it and how to do it. And we sit there and we laugh. I don't know when that movie was made, but it's probably over 10 years ago. And we laughed about how ridiculous that was, except you can find examples right now that you're looking in that movie and you're saying, well, that just happened to me the other day. Right.
Yeah.
And
it's here almost. Yeah.
Yeah. So it has, and we've created this entire generation, that has such a reliance on the technology is like I say about my grandkids. If the electricity went off, then they would starve to death across the street from a grocery store, because they could no longer find it on Google, right? And so that's that entire generation who will presumably at some point take over for us. But by that time, they won't have to worry about taking over, because the machines will have taken over virtually every task that they would need to do.
So
And
for right now,
so, yeah, yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. It's right now. It's today.
Yeah, it is. But what I'm saying, for right now, we can have some benefits at where we're at. We have faster scientific discoveries. We have increased productivity. Let's see. We can automate like dangerous work, and come up with solutions to problems that we right now seem impossible to us. Now, we're in that area where it can benefit us.
Yeah, and like with any technology, for every good thing that I can tell you it does, there's some bad guy out there who can think of 10 things that it will do, badly.
JP and I were discussing that yesterday, that human beings have a great capacity for good and a great capacity for evil.
That's right.
And our technology reflects who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be used for either good or evil. And that's in our hands.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that this is moving out of our hands. Look, we've been on this planet for I'm going to say 100,000 years right now. That's probably been more. But we haven't come up with a way to live harmoniously together. And our AI technology will someday say, hey, you know what?
We don't need you.
They can't do it.
Right.
We're either going to help them or we're going to just take over, and they can't do it.
Yeah. Sooner or later, the machine figures out it doesn't need you anymore.
Yeah. But I could see an intermediate time where government is run by AI. Mm-hmm. Courts are run by AI.
Oh, yeah.
Right now you have the politicization of the courts and government.
Right.
That's not good. And we know it. We're fighting each other each and every day here in this country.
And people say it wouldn't happen, but look at Major League Baseball. Look at pro football. We have the review of the referee's call that can override the referee's call.
Sure.
So it's not too big of a leap of concern there that your court systems, let's keep everything fair. We're going to let the computer figure out what precedent applies here, and then it will make a decision. We take the human out of the process, right? You could actually see that. Somebody could write a movie script to that, and it would be perfectly believable. But the biggest problem is that even in the Terminator movies, talking about Skynet, there was an off switch. But what you had just pointed out is currently there is no off switch. Once this thing migrates into the World Wide Web, there's no way to shut it off.
And Dave likes me to talk about extraterrestrials.
Okay.
A little bit. I'm going to bring this in. If there are extraterrestrials coming to our planet from different galaxies,
yeah,
they're not biological. They're AI.
Yeah.
Because biological entities couldn't survive those types of trips.
Well, and the other thing to point out is that a sentient biological being can't exist in a highly technological system, because, as Asimov pointed out, was that you rarely, humans or whatever version of that biological entity, never survives its technological adolescence.
There seems to be like a barrier that we can't get through.
Right. And so his point was that we should have blown ourselves up 50 years ago, right? We should have just already destroyed all life on planet Earth. And it is only by quirk of fate or divine intervention that we haven't already done it. And so he said there is, and that just like you pointed out, there's that ceiling, there's that limit of technology that biological entities hit where they don't exist anymore. They become extinct.
So it's almost like the next generation of evolution. Biological entities bring it to that level where artificial intelligence takes over, and it's like an evolution.
Well, because of my Christian beliefs, I believe that someone comes in to intercede, probably at that point you're talking about.
Well, you know what? This is very interesting because the nature of God.
Yeah.
The nature of God, I don't know, is biological.
Well,
neither do.
Well, actually, technically, God isn't biological.
It isn't. No, but he entered our biological.
When he created the system, the biological system, but
you go back to Genesis.
Yeah.
And Genesis tells us, God says, let us make man in our image.
Correct.
So it kind of opens the question, who are they that he's talking about? Mm-hmm. Let us make man in our image.
Mm-hmm.
And is it a number of people, a number of entities that are with him?
Well, at least two that we're aware of, right? God the Father and God the Son. So that would qualify as our. But yeah, your point is well taken. How many is our? You're correct. Yeah.
And at what? Let's just take this a little further. Let's say that AI becomes all powerful and decides to recreate biological intelligence. There's a book in there somewhere.
Yeah, there's some of that and whenever we take on the cloak of immortality from God the Father when he comes back to save us from ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Well, getting back to closer to home here, some of the potential downsides of AI right now are like job displacement. I mean, you're going to see unemployment go up
mm-hmm.
as AI takes over jobs. So you're going to see loss of privacy. You're going to see, like I was saying before, like misinformation, deep fakes, that type of thing.
Right.
Maybe concentration of power in the hands of those who control the AI.
Well, Elon Musk said it himself, but others have said similar things. He said, first he was against AI, right? He was trying to do everything he could to prevent its expansion. Well, then he realized that, this is a snowball running downhill and there's not much you can do about it. So his point was that I want to be the first one who gets the artificial general intelligence working. And his point was that better my hands than someone else's. Better because I'm more benevolent than some dictator, right? Well, you can see where that's going, right?
Yeah.
And so so he said, He said, because whoever gets to artificial general intelligence first is going to be emperor of the world. And that while he didn't say it like this is what he meant. He says, and I want to be that guy because I don't want that guy to have power over me, right?
The old saying is power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yep.
And so it doesn't matter who it is. But so the question is, what should we do?
Yeah.
It probably isn't, you can't stop AI. You can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Right.
And the answer probably isn't build it as fast as possible and hope everything works out. So there's got to be something in between, huh?
Yes. Well, we know that you remember the movie I, Robot, where there were three principles basically of AI. The first one, I don't remember what they all were, but the first one was that the robot couldn't hurt a human. Well, there's no such three rules, right?
No.
Those three rules do not exist. No one is creating algorithms that are building those three rules into the system.
As a matter of fact, we're in the process of building robotic soldiers that are meant to kill other human beings.
Right.
So I don't know how that's ever going to happen.
No. Well, I mean, so even if you legislated it, you wouldn't be able to prevent.
Exactly.
And so, and I'll just use the speed limit as an example. Being one who unfortunately has thought that those signs were suggestions, and that that I would go slower at some point to make it average out at that speed.
Yeah.
But it's true about any law that you create. The reason we have laws is because there are people who break the law, and you will not create a law that keeps people from breaking the law. You only create laws for the law-abiding citizens so that they know where the limit is, right? But the folks who don't care about the law, they don't care. They don't care about breaking it, right?
I get the biggest kick out of buildings that have the gun with a circle around it and the X.
Right.
Yeah. No guns allowed. What does that mean to a guy with a gun? It means, guess what? There's no guns in this building.
Yeah. Well, it's the guy who we want to prevent from having a gun in that building is the guy who doesn't care about the sign.
Exactly.
Right.
So just going back on this topic. So I applied for my conceal and carry a few years ago. As a matter of fact, I'm due to re-up on it here shortly. I need to get that done
every 5 years.
And it's a little different going into the sheriff's department, and obviously you're not getting arrested. You're still getting fingerprint and all that. There's a process you go through to get your conceal and carry. And I flat out asked one of the deputies that was putting me through the process. I said, does people like us getting conceal and carry, does that bother police? And they said, no, we love it, because people like you who are going through this process do it the right way. You're only going to use that force if you absolutely need to. You don't look at it as this is for fun or this is to use it for wrong. And I think that's where, because we have that humanism of this is right, this is wrong. Now, there are some that don't care about that. Is there a way to implement that into machines? I don't know if that's even possible or not, because I feel like that's God-given to us.
I don't think it is.
So an excellent point, right, to what you're talking about there, JP, is that the folks with concealed carry permits commit crime at a considerably less rate than police officers commit crimes. And so what JP was talking about, I think, was that even police officers recognize that's a different level of person who's applying for that concealed carry permit, and that there's a good reason for needing it.
So here's a comment here. It's like having a gate. That gate is not going to stop someone. It only stops the ones who abide by the law and decide not to enter the gate. If someone wants to enter through the gate, they will just simply move it. Same concept. Yeah.
Same thing.
Exact same idea.
Same deal.
So Richard, on the AI, you
Yeah.
talking about the immediate future, what would you perceive as some things that could be done, perhaps not to limit the use of the technology, but controls that you think that we could absolutely put into place to help alleviate some of the angst?
Well, you know what? It has to be a worldwide effort.
Yep, I agree.
If it's an effort within one country or a group of countries, it's meaningless because there are other countries that won't abide by it. So and I look at groups of nations like the United Nations and the World Health Organization, and I see how they are unable to come to consensus. I don't know.
Well, so remember what we did with nuclear weapons is probably what helped us survive. And as crazy as it sounds, is that the principle of MAD, mutually assured destruction, came into play. But that was only that it only had that ability because we were essentially on an equal footing. The Russians had the bomb, the Chinese had the bomb, and we had the bomb, and it only took one bomb, right? And so, fortunately, there were reasonable people who got together and said, "Okay, yeah, well, we're not going to throw away our bombs because we don't know that you're going to throw away your bombs, but just keep in mind that as long as I got a bomb, I've got a response to you." And so, I don't know if we can do the same thing with artificial general intelligence. I'm not sure how we would get that employed.
I don't know that we can. I think we're butting up against that ceiling we talked about.
Yeah, and here's the deal. I agree with this because I was thinking about that, and when it comes to this war with Iran, which if anybody asks me, I am in support of. I feel like Iran has been an issue for a long time. It has never been dealt with directly, which we are doing now, whether people like it or not. Don't really care. But the same idea, right? To deal with it on a world perspective, you have to have groups like Iran, countries like Iran, who would agree, I'm not going to do bad with it. Like same thing with the nuclear weapon. I'm not going to trust Iran to say I'm going to do what's right with the potential of AI. And so, unfortunately, the very thing I think we need to regulate it is the very thing that is virtually impossible.
Well, so they've proven they can't be an honest broker in it.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
any country that would pay mothers $10,000 for every one of their kids who will put on a bomb and walk into a bus full of kids and blow them all up. That's not a country you can negotiate with.
We have an ideological group here that wants to bring about nuclear war. It wants to, because it feels that will bring about the end of the world and the coming of Allah. Okay. And so as long as that radical Islam is allowed to exist in the world, we'll never come to consensus.
So, Richard, you brought us right back to where the show started without even trying to know. We did not plan this. The clips that we started the show with, it's a monologue. A gentleman that was in the armed forces is talking about we need to remember radical Islam and talking about some specific examples of members of our military being literally dismembered and tore apart alive when they were taken as prisoners of war. And the rabbi was on here a few months ago, and of course they've been dealing with this war for close to 3 years now with radical Islam, all the way back to October 7th of 2023. And he was trying to figure out why Trump was kind of at one point saying, "Oh, I'm going to go after him," and then he wouldn't. And I said, "Well, I wonder if he's trying to reason with them and get them to come to the table in good faith." And he said, "That's the problem. That kind of thinking, it makes sense for you because you're logical. They're not. They're radical. Their goal is elimination of everybody else and their soul survival. That's what the goal is. And unfortunately, we don't agree on that. And so there's really hardly no way to come to an agreement with
No.
that kind of radical ideology.
Well, remember
You're
what
talking about
remember what Ho Chi Minh said after LBJ said, "I'm going to bomb you into the Stone Age," and Ho Chi Minh says, "Too late. We're already in the Stone Age."
Yeah.
And so yes, I mean these people, just like North Vietnam, they don't care about how many of their citizens die. That is not what their goal is. Their goal isn't to improve the life of their citizens. Their goal is world domination.
So to step back just one step here, if we're coming up with rules for AI to keep it from harming us, and we're talking about it in the United States, a wave of Islamic extremism is washing over our own politics. Take a look at what's happening in New York. This man's affiliated with the Brotherhood, the Islamic Brotherhood. And if we can't come up with rules in our own country, how is the world going to do it?
Richard, you're right. It's completely upside down. I made a statement at the beginning of the show, and I just think it's worth repeating. This is how drastic things have changed. 1 year ago, if you had told me that I'm going to, on a lot of different things that he's talked about, all of a sudden wholeheartedly agree with Bill Mayer and go against Tucker Carlson, I would have said you have lost your mind. That's the time period we're in. I was at one point where I thought that Representative Fetterman was a radical Democrat who needed to come out of office. The man has a stroke. I don't know if he died and actually met God and somehow had an epiphany, but ever since then, he's the most logical Democrat I have heard in years, and maybe potentially getting ready to switch parties. And Bill Mayer, who's a longtime Democrat, is talking about leaving the Democrat Party because of what's going on.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? I think that we're coming to the point where we're going to have to split up in our country. We're coming to the precipice where we can't continue being under our Constitution and have these people in government. I can foresee a time when there's two separate entities in the United States, one that's constitutional and one that's socialist.
Well, you remember what Lincoln said? He said, I'm going to have to paraphrase him a little bit here because I can't remember the exact words, but he said, "No European Napoleon will ever dip his cup and take a drink out of the Ohio River. If we are to fail, it will be from within."
Prophetic words.
Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly what the Islamic faith they've talked about, is beating us from internally, and just they're not going out. And I mean, in some cases, maybe they're being violent in some major cities and in a few things, but it's mainly just trying to overpopulate and saturate their belief into ours. And I mean, we are constantly now seeing Democrat socialists who are making gains in political offices. And again, New York City is a prime example. And now you have people like, and now again, I can't claim that I know for sure this is true, but I could see this statement possibly being true. And this is just my own posturing, that George Clooney, who is a huge Mondami supporter, and was told that the wealth tax that was going to be imposed on New York City, he would be exempt from it. Now it's being imposed on him. And he said, "I didn't vote for this. I want out." And it's funny how all of a sudden the script flips really quickly.
Yeah. So I do have to make a comment on Fetterman. Fetterman, I mean, I'm not as enthusiastic about his finding religion, especially since one of his predecessors was Arlen Specter. And I don't know if you remember him, but remember when it became politically expedient, he switched to being a Democrat from being a Republican. And so, sometimes it's hard to tell the players without a scorecard. And I would say that about our United States Senate in spades, because there's so many of them who say one thing and do the exact opposite.
And so meanwhile, while we're slugging it out ideologically, AI is moving on at a rapid pace.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It just like basically government, we throw a shiny thing up for people to look at that's popular at the time. and watch, and that diverts people's attention from what's really going on. I'd mentioned an article that I'd read earlier. This is going back about 2 weeks now, about a cooperation between Newsmax and one of these AI companies, and realizing, of course, they're business people just like everybody else, and they understand that they have to employ this technology, but it went almost unnoticed, and so that kind of cooperation, but then obviously bragging about it through their own network, gives me pause about how much I can rely on future information that comes from one of my favorite networks.
Hey, by the way, what has happened to Tucker and Candace?
Oh yeah, well, here's my take on it. Everything is down to clicks, right? Everything, your entire paycheck is dependent on clicks, right? Clicks on your Facebook page, clicks on this, clicks on that. So we've all seen these headlines that pop up on our feed or wherever, and it'll say something like, pray for Clint Eastwood's family. And it's like, oh, what happened? Did Clint Eastwood die and I didn't hear about it? And so you click on it. Well, then the article is about, Clint Eastwood's dog has been missing for a week now. If anybody sees the dog, then please, call the phone number or whatever. But nobody cares about the article. All I care about is you clicking on my thing, right? Because Amazon or Google or whoever is going to pay me for the number of times people click on it, not the content. Nobody cares about the content anymore.
Well, so Richard, I partly agree with Don. I believe it is a clickbait thing with both of them. But I have something deeper. I believe with Tucker that he has actually been completely bought off. He now has a home being built in Qatar. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is coming out now that behind the scenes. I put this out to Dave some time ago, and now I'm seeing more and more people kind of coming to the side with Candace that I believe what happened years ago. And there's documents, there's photos of them being close, that Candace actually wanted to be with Charlie, and he chose Erica. It's a lover scorn thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's certainly there's always a human potential for that. But it could be a multitude of things.
And it could be a combination.
Yeah, it comes certainly a combination. It's like, hey, I have a way I can get back at my enemy and make money at it at the same time. So,
Richard, I wanted to give you a chance real quick because we just have a couple minutes left. I'm going to put up here on the screen. This book is out there. A is for America. Richard C. Jeffrey. Want to give you a chance to plug it and let everybody know what it's about.
Well, I tell you, I wrote poems that are about people and places in America. It deals with our culture, and it takes the alphabet from A to Z. I write 2 poems for each letter of the alphabet. If you haven't picked it up, please do. It's available at barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, or from Liberty Hill Publishers. And it's good if you have kids from 5 to high school, 5th grade to high school. Great gift. And
what a novel concept. So these are poems that you wrote, or a collection of poems that you've discovered?
I wrote.
Okay. All right.
In order to understand this a little bit, I'm a composer. I write music for 5 different publishing companies. And so as a composer, I write lyrics, and the poetry is a spin-off of that.
Yeah. Well, I was just sitting here. You don't look like the stereotypical poet. I just wanted to point that out.
Well, you'd be surprised.
Well, great. I will. Where can we pick it up at? Where do we find your book at?
Once again, barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, Liberty Hill Publishers, and probably other places now too.
A signed copy can be acquired by going to the Liberty Hill one. How would we get a signed copy?
If you want one, give me your information and I'll send one to you.
All right. Well, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
Richard C. Jeffrey. Thank you so much, and we'll looking forward to having you on again in the future.
God bless you all.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Richard.
You too.
Take care.
All right. Well, we have just about wrapped up the show here.
We've wasted another 3 hours of our time and other people's time.
Well, can
I
we
hope folks got some good information out of today's show. I think it was really very informative.
Yeah, I don't know if you can call it waste when we are trying to do what we believe we can.
Yeah.
Try to save our country and maybe keep us on the verge of a AI takeover. Like we covered so many different and Islamic takeover. We did so many different topics today, but it's kind of funny how it's still kind of intermingled in some ways too.
Yeah. Well, my comment on the waste was about I am a cheap imitation of the guy who usually sits in this chair. So I'm glad y'all put up with me today. I appreciate it. I had fun.
And just like we have a few seconds left. What's your plans after January? Whenever do you know what the next phase of life looks like yet?
I have a real job that I've always had the whole time I was in the legislature. Just like a citizen legislator, I get to go back to doing my citizen job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot of fun, right?
It'll be, I could probably get a lot more done now. Let me just put it that way. Yeah.
I did find it interesting when you and Bill have done the shows before, and I was asking the questions about how much is posturing when it comes to the state capitol, how much is, and it's amazing how much happens behind the scenes that we have no clue about.
It's I could write a book. Yeah. Maybe I will.
That would be interesting. Behind the scenes of the Missouri Capitol. That might be a bestseller. You never know. Well, Don, thanks so much for guest hosting today. And, of course, Dave will be back next Friday. And 8 a.m. Central Time next Friday, back with another edition of the Dave Weinbaum Show.